Chapter 410. Xia Feng was a coward. After all, his previous life was too short. Now that he was reborn at the age of 10, of course, he would cherish the second chance given to him by the heavens. Qiao Shuang's dance was not considered a humiliation for that lord. In fact, Xia Feng felt that it was an honor for her. If the Lord was happy and rewarded her with some upper realm treasures, wouldn't that be a great fortune? But what's wrong with Sikong Hui? He kept contradicting the Lord and even openly held Qiao Shuang's hand and made a solemn vow of love. Did I misjudge him? Does he really love Qiao Shuang? He called me brother just to get closer to her and get sister-in-law first? To be honest, Xia Feng did not care much about Qiao Shuang. Even if it was Sikong Hui, he was just using him. However, the woman he did not care about, the woman who was not worthy of him, was being intimate with the pawn he used? If he could still tolerate this, he would not be a coward but a fool. A joke. He would be the talk of the world. Beep. The destined child is angry. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Clang. By the time Qiao Shuang placed the wine jar on the table, her beautiful face had turned completely red. Inexplicably, there was a hint of seductive charm. Young master, I've finished the wine. Begin your performance. Ling Xiao nodded and turned to look at the geniuses of Great Xia. Instantly, everyone trembled and had the urge to pee. Damn. Although at this moment, they still did not know who Ling Xiao was. However, could this delay their surging admiration for the latter? The prince who slapped the fan, the son of Count Zhongyi, and the daughter of the imperial advisor, the #1 beauty of Great Xia, Qiao Shuang, to dance. What kind of heavenly power was this? What kind of dominance was this? Furthermore, looking at the eldest prince's expression, he did not seem to be angry at all. Instead, he seemed to be excited. Does anyone know how to play a musical instrument? Play a musical instrument for this beauty? Ling Xiao smiled gently, completely different from his previous ferocious demeanor. Young master, I know how to play. Young master, I know how to play too. Dance. Soon, the sound of string music could be heard from the restaurant. There was a young master playing the zither, a proud daughter playing the flute, and a prince holding a flute. It was a lively scene. In front of the crowd, Qiao Shuang danced gracefully like a fairy. Even Xia Feng had an intoxicated look on his face as he stared at the beautiful figure. He was completely engrossed in her beauty. Only Sikong Hui sat alone at the corner, and there wasn't a single person accompanying him in the surroundings. It was completely different from when he'd just entered the restaurant. What general? What Count Zhongyi? Compared to this young master in front of him, what was he worth? What? Were we licking her just now? Please, how could that be called licking? Small talk, do you understand? Cultivators of our generation pursue the Tao wholeheartedly without any distractions. How could we do such a shameless thing? If I had to lick, I would choose to lick this young master from the Xingzhou continent. Come, raise your hands and shake them for me. Ling Xiao stretched out his hand and clapped to the beat. Looking at the group of so-called geniuses of the Great Xia dynasty twisting their bodies, his lips curled into a smile. This is life. Look, isn't it great that everyone is happy? Life is bitter and short. Why should we always scheme and scheme? Of course, happiness is the most important thing. Late into the night, the geniuses were panting and sweating profusely. They were either lying down or sitting in front of the table with unfocused gazes. Only then did Ling Xiao casually take out an immortal herb that contained spiritual essence and throw it on the ground. You danced well. After saying that, he left in a carefree manner. Qiao Shuang stood in the same spot. Her pretty face was flushed, and it was unknown whether it was due to exhaustion or embarrassment. In short, her eyes were empty and lonely. At this moment, Xia Feng immediately walked to her side and gently touched her arm. Shuang quickly put away that spirit herb. What the young master gave may not be from this world. Oh. Xiao Shuang sighed softly and said with a somewhat sarcastic tone, not from this world? Could it be from the upper world? Shoo! No one except the royal family of the great Xia dynasty knows about this. Previously, the Lord gave me a spirit herb which is from the upper world. It can protect my Tao laws. Xia Feng gave Xiao Shuang a look. Not far away, Sikong Hui suddenly walked to his side and pushed him to the side. Shuang we don't care about spirit treasures. Let me send you home. Perhaps it's going to rain outside. Xiao Shuang looked deeply at Xia Feng. Protected by Sikong Hui, she walked out of the Immortal's Tower. When they walked to the side of the spirit herb, Sikong Hui actually stomped on it and crushed it into pieces. It's raining? Xia Feng's eyes were gloomy as he watched the two of them leave. Only then did he walk to the spirit herb and pick it up from the ground. Damn! He was still too young. Being impulsive would not solve anything. If he wanted to be respected, he had to become stronger regardless of anything. One day, all of you will understand that everything you have now is nothing but a fleeting cloud, a gaudy dream. Only strength is the foundation of life. Crunch, crunch. After saying that, Xia Feng directly stuffed the broken spirit herb into his mouth. A wave of rich, spiritual energy instantly spread. Even his second stage divine general realm showed signs of loosening. It was indeed a spirit treasure bestowed by the Lord. One spirit herb was equivalent to 10 years of bitter cultivation. Humiliation? Ridicule? What was the big deal? As long as one stood at the top of the sky and held the stars in one's hand, one could have everything one wanted. Remember, the higher one stood, the more outstanding the people one would meet. Work hard to climb up and don't care about others' opinions. Look, the young men and women in this restaurant were all nobles and prides in the eyes of the world. However, in front of the Lord, they were no different from pigs and dogs. After all, only those who had died once would understand what was most important. The first prince ate that spirit herb? I think so. He stomped it to that extent. This first prince is really... The prodigies looked at him with ridicule, especially Xia Qing and Xia Li. They sneered and said, Big brother is indeed the pride of our great Xia. Ha 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 ha. Ha ha. Xia Feng did not refute. Or rather, he was too lazy to refute. Go ahead and laugh. One day you won't even have the chance to cry. However, Sikong Hui, you made me very unhappy today. Dragon Fortune City, on the ancient street. Sikong Hui's expression was gloomy, but he did not say anything. Xiao Shuang was also silent, and her beautiful face was sad. The two of them walked along the long street. There were no stars tonight, and the cold wind was bone-chilling. There was indeed a torrential downpour. When did it start? Sikong Hui only spoke softly when the two of them walked to the west of the city and reached an empty stone bridge. Brother Hui, what did you say? I said. When did that bastard Xia Feng start to humiliate you? Sikong Hui roared in anger, his words passionate. However, Xiao Shuang directly reached out and covered his mouth. Brother Hui, you're crazy. Xia Feng, no matter what, he's still the first prince of the great Xia. If others hear this, so what if they hear it? Without my Sikong clan and your Qiao clan, can Xia Xing sit on the throne? Since our clans can help him up, we can also drag him down. Sikong Hui's eyes seemed to flicker with spiritual light, and his entire person became somewhat cold and terrifying. Brother Hui Xiao Shuang covered her mouth, and her beautiful eyes were filled with surprise. You're arrogant. Master just took Emperor Xia as a slave, and you actually want to drag him down? I think you're not courting death at all. You're crazily running naked on the road to death. Chapter 4:11. Actually, Brother Hui Xiao Shuang sighed and took the initiative to hold Sikong Hui's arm. Don't ever say anything about overthrowing the Xia clan again. Otherwise, it will be a crime to exterminate the entire clan. Shuang you, Sikong Hui's body trembled. especially when he felt the warmth of the girl's hand. His heart couldn't help but ripple. Actually, I feel that Emperor Xia should have noticed that something is wrong with Xiaofeng. Qiao Shuang gently pressed her face against Sikong Hui's arm. Brother Hui, do you still remember when we were young? We often came here to play. Shuang what do you know? Tell me. Don't worry, even if I die, I will help you. In recent years, Emperor Xia has been increasingly wary of the first prince. I didn't think much of it before, but a few days ago, Qiao Shuang hesitated for a long time, but finally shook her head and smiled. Forget it. I didn't even notice that mysterious young master. I'm afraid I'm overthinking. Shuang you're making me anxious. If you don't tell me, I'll immediately capture Xiaofeng and beat him until he tells me. I'll tell you. Brother Hui, can you not be so impulsive? Qiao Shuang smiled bitterly, but her expression became inexplicably serious. Brother Hui, I went out with Xiaofeng to train and lost my memory for a period of time. On the way back, I found a strange spirit flower on his chest. It looked very similar to the Emperor Vane's spirit gold of the great Zhou's eldest princess. Damn! Actually, she had never seen an Emperor Vane's spirit gold. This excuse was taught to her by Ling Xiao. When framing someone, one must not be too direct. Otherwise, it would seem deliberate. Let others explore and discover for themselves. The process of finding the truth will make people believe without a doubt. At that time, Xia Feng's identity would be exposed and he would be so angry that he would kill his good brother, Are you really not considering me for this year's Best Director award? What? You mean? Sikong Hui's face turned pale. He seemed to be in disbelief. The Emperor Vane's spirit gold was not used by a demon wait. That demon used the Xia clan's inherited cultivation technique, the Divine Dragon Seal. But, although Xia Feng's cultivation level had improved rapidly in recent years, he was only at the Divine General level. Was it possible that he was in cahoots with the devil? I didn't believe it at first, but in the past few years, he has become more and more evil, making me feel very unfamiliar. Qiao Shuang let go of Sikong Hui and hugged her arms. It was unknown whether it was because of the cold or because of fear, but her delicate body gradually trembled. What? So that's how it is. No wonder he is so afraid of that mysterious young master. He has a guilty conscience and is afraid of exposing his identity. Sikong Hui nodded and sneered, and killing intent flowed within his eyes. But what's he doing all of this for? Previously, I unintentionally heard Xiaofeng mention that he seems to have an enemy who is very powerful. Even with the strength of the great Xia, we might not be able to kill that enemy. Thus, I guess that he might have turned into a demon due to hatred and wanted to become stronger. The desolation on Qiao Shuang's face didn't seem to be fake, and it instantly dispelled the doubts in Sikong Hui's heart. Shuang don't worry. If Xiaofeng is really a demon, I will never let him go. Don't worry. Tomorrow, I will use the excuse of sparring as an excuse to invite all the important ministers and experts of the great Xia dynasty to personally unveil Xiaofeng's hypocritical mask. Sikong Hui did not doubt Qiao Shuang's words at all. Moreover, if the spiritual gold in Xiaofeng's possession was really the one that was lost in the great Zhou dynasty, everything would come to light. Even if he was not a demon, he would definitely be related to the devil. At that time, there would be no place for him in the western border. Even if he did not bring the spiritual gold with him. It was just a sparring match, and Sikong Hui's purpose would not be exposed. After all, there was still time. He would definitely find a way to expose Xiaofeng's conspiracy. Wonderful. Do you think that I, Sikong Hui, am only able to achieve what I have today because of brash bravery? What I rely on is my unparalleled intelligence. Then, Brother Hui, will you be in danger? Qiao Shuang seemed to be very worried. After all, Xiaofeng's strength was indeed very strong. At the very least, he could be ranked in the top 3 among the younger generation of the great Xia dynasty. Don't worry, Shuang. Just watch. Although Xia Feng is strong, he is only a second-grade divine general, 1 grade higher than me. Moreover, since he is a demon cultivator, he will definitely not dare to use his true strength when the time comes. But Brother Hui, I don't want you to take risks at all. Qiao Shuang's beautiful eyes were red. She looked like she was about to cry. I know. Shuang, I will definitely protect myself. Don't worry. After saying that, the two of them hugged each other tightly. The scene was very heartwarming. However, at the end of the long street in the distance, Xia Feng looked at the two of them calmly. There was no trace of anger on his face. With his strength, he could not eavesdrop on the conversation between the two of them. However, this shameless couple obviously had an affair. In this way, what can I do? Of course, I will forgive her and help her. In Xia Feng's eyes, whether it was Qiao Shuang or Sikong Hui, they were just tools. All he could rely on in the great Xia dynasty was the forces behind these two people. Once he parted ways with Sikong Hui, there would be no possibility for him to get a share of the great Xia dynasty. Although Xia Feng could use the memories of his previous life to know the opening times of the various secret realms in the western border and even the ancient treasures hidden in them. However, if he did not have the identity of the great Xia dynasty's first prince or crown prince, how could he compete with the geniuses of the other dynasties? Foresight was indeed his golden finger, but the prerequisite was that he had enough strength to obtain the treasures. Moreover, those ancient secret realms had restrictions. When they opened, there would often be divine and celestial scenes appearing, as if they were afraid that others would not know that they were about to appear. Even if Xia Feng knew their location, he could not enter if they did not appear. What? They entered in other people's novels. That could only be said that they were not careful. Otherwise, take a look. Which one of the male protagonists, who was destined to be reborn, secretly dug out the ruins of an entire continent? The relics must have appeared and attracted countless geniuses. With the memories of their previous lives, they would make arrangements and plans to give a strong slap in the face. If there was no one, how could he show off? If he did not show off, what was the use of this golden finger? Therefore, at this time, Xia Feng decided. He wanted to let this shameless couple show off their full potential. As long as the great Xia dynasty was in his hands and his position was stable, then, wouldn't it be easy for him to kill anyone? However, before that, he had to make a deal with Qiao Shuang and completely control this granddaughter of the Grand Tutor. As he thought of this, a cold look flashed across Xia Feng's eyes. He turned around and walked toward the center of the imperial city. Not long after he left, Ling Zhao's figure appeared in the void above. His eyes were clear and contained a hint of surprise. This chosen one was really cowardly. His fiancée was already in his arms. How could he still be calm? Fine, since you are not going to fight, then I can only let Sikong Hui fight you. Chapter 412. Outside the Grand Tutor's residence, Sikong Hui bid farewell to Qiao Shuang and walked into the distance. Qiao Shuang's eyes were also filled with reluctance. However, after the figure completely disappeared, her expression inexplicably turned cold. Now that her consciousness was being controlled, the strongest Grand Tutor of the Qiao family was in seclusion. Thus, no one had discovered the soul seal in Qiao Shuang's soul sea. Eldest Mississippi, outside the residence, the two guards bowed. Just as Qiao Shuang walked forward with an indifferent expression, a gentle laugh came from behind her. Shuang HM? Qiao Shuang was stunned. When she turned around, Xia Feng was already in front of her. Eldest Prince? F***CK. Before today, she was still calling him Brother Feng. In just a short day, she was now calling him Eldest Prince. Fine, what is a woman? She will only affect my path to the pinnacle of the world. In my eyes, you are just a tool. Oh, the one from Cold Moon's celestial palace is different. Although she is also a woman, she will not affect my path to the pinnacle of the world. She will even help me become an immortal. I have something to discuss with you. Xia Feng smiled bitterly, seemingly a little disappointed. Qiao Shuang looked at him in confusion. Eldest Prince, it is already so late. Let's talk about it tomorrow. This is very important. It is related to the future of you and the Grand Tutor's residence. Shuang I have booked a room in the Pear Garden. Come over when you have thought about it. In the end, Xia Feng did not try to persuade her. He turned and left. He believed that Qiao Shuang would definitely come. This was because she felt guilty towards herself in her heart. Thus, she felt uneasy and urgently wanted to know why Xia Feng was looking for her. At the same time, she did not dare to gamble with the future of the Grand Tutor's residence. Eldest Miss, do you want us to accompany you outside the Grand Tutor's residence? The two guards on duty walked up to Qiao Shuang and asked coldly. It was already late at night, and the eldest prince was asking their eldest miss to a room? Although the two of them were already engaged, if this kind of behavior was spread out, it would still have a negative impact on the Qiao family. However, Qiao Shuang's pretty face was inexplicably cold. Xia Feng, you are really good at assisting. No need. In the Pear Garden's top pavilion, Xia Feng sat on a soft couch and sipped a cup of tea. There was a serious look on his face. In less than a year, the Immortal Palace secret realm would open. The entire western border knew that there was a heavenly fortune that could allow one to break through the last step in the secret realm. Xia Feng had no idea whether the rumors were true or not. After all, in his previous life, he had died before the end of the mystic realm. However, there were many spiritual treasures and cultivation methods hidden in the secret realm that could be said to be miraculous. For example, the Black Flood Dragon Blood Seal that he cultivated. Although it was an inheritance of the Devil Tao, it did possess a heaven-defying might. At this moment, he clearly remembered the other places in the secret realm that contained inheritances. As long as he could get in and bring enough subordinates with him to hide in the dark, who could compete with him in the western border? First Prince, suddenly, a gentle female voice came from outside the door. Xia Feng's lips curled into a smile. Come in. When the door opened, Qiao Shuang seemed to be nervous. Humph. It's right to be nervous. What did you think you could hide from me? Bitch, you're still alive because you're still useful to me. When you're no longer useful, I'll use the blood seal to torture you. First Prince. It's so late. Why are you looking for me? Qiao Shuang looked flustered. She kept a safe distance from Xia Feng. Of course, everything she was doing now was just an act. After all, she had the guidance of the best director and the best actor. Everyone was serious about acting. She had to put herself in. She had to be realistic. Her emotions had to be exaggerated to the extreme. Can't I look for you for no reason? Xia Feng sneered. After all, there were no outsiders here. He didn't have to pretend to be harmless like before. First Prince, you're exaggerating. Where did you go just now? Xia Feng's lips curled into a cold smile. However, Qiao Shuang's face was inexplicably pale. After I left the Cloudy Dream Immortal Tower, I went straight back to my residence. Oh? Is that so? Did I see wrongly? It wasn't you on the stone bridge in the west of the city? First Prince. Qiao Shuang's eyes were filled with panic. Then, she knelt on the ground. In the end, this country belonged to the Xia family. What she and Xikong Hui did tonight was no different from slapping the imperial family's face. Once this matter spread out, the Qiao family would not have any face to protect her. They might even sacrifice her to protect their family. Qiao Shuang, I trusted you so much. You actually... If I report this matter to Imperial Father, what do you think the Qiao family and Xikong family will pay? Xia Feng got up and walked to Qiao Shuang. He gently pinched her chin. Oh, with our Xia family's current strength, we couldn't deal with both your families at the same time. But now that lord is still in the palace. With his strength, do you think the state preceptor and Count Zhongyi would dare to rebel? First Prince. Qiao Shuang seemed to be at a loss. Her delicate body trembled and went limp on the ground. However, I can give you a chance now. If you swear on your Dao heart that you'll be loyal to me in the future and use the Qiao family's foundation to help me ascend to the throne, not only will I not blame you, I'll even give you to Sikong Hui. You like him very much, don't you? Seeing that the time was almost ripe, Xia Feng's expression suddenly turned serious. What? First Prince, you really don't blame me? Qiao Shuang looked up with disbelief in her eyes. That's right. Not only will I not blame you, but as long as you perform well, I'll guarantee your Qiao family's prosperity for 100 years. Xia Feng snorted coldly. There seemed to be a domineering aura between his brows. What do you think? I'm willing. I swear on my Dao heart that I'll do whatever it takes to help you ascend to the throne. I only beg you to let Brother Hui go. Tears glistened in Qiao Shuang's eyes. In the end, she gritted her teeth and swore on her Dao heart. Let him go? Ha ha, what a pair of lovers. As long as you let Brother Hui go, Shuang is willing to do anything. Qiao Shuang blushed. The meaning behind her words was self-evident. Anything? Xia Feng was stunned. He hated this adulterous couple, but he did not have any dirty thoughts. After all, he was the son of destiny. How could he be as shameless as the villain? Brother Feng, I'm willing to compensate you. Please protect the dignity of my Qiao family. After saying that, Qiao Shuang took the initiative to pull up her dress, revealing her snow-white shoulders. Gulp. Xia Feng was a pervert, but he was a man after all. Qiao Shuang was so proactive, no. He had to restrain himself. After all, the guard saw him bringing Qiao Shuang to Pear Garden tonight. However, inexplicably, there seemed to be a ball of evil fire burning in his heart. An abnormal scarlet color flashed across his eyes. Right at this moment, he seemed to feel the world in front of him suddenly turn dark. Then, Qiao Shuang's figure pounced on him. At the same time, Ling Zhao's figure suddenly appeared out of thin air in the private room. With a light flick of his finger, the powder instantly turned into ashes. Then, he looked at the shy and rosy face in front of him, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. Before Qiao Shuang could react, he picked her up and pressed her under his body. He had to admit that since Qiao Shuang was known as the #1 beauty of the great Xia dynasty, her figure and appearance were not bad. Although it couldn't be considered top-notch, it was small and exquisite, with curves in the right places. Master, don't. For the entire night, Xia Feng could hear waves of cheers coming from beside him. And he was lying on the floor with an intoxicated expression, doing the same thing to the air. On the soft bed, Qiao Shuang's face was red and she was panting. She looked at the young man below with a languid expression. At this moment, he really looked like a dog. You know what to do now. Ling Xiao stretched and a star robe condensed on his body. A cold smile bloomed on his face. Now that Qiao Shuang had surrendered, Xia Feng's next target would definitely be Sikong Hui. With his intellect, he could only play the role of brotherly love and fulfill your wishes. Sikong Hui was touched. Sister-in-law becoming daughter-in-law was a joyous occasion. This big brother was really good. What a pity. This plan of yours is destined to fail. Qiao Shuang's value had been squeezed dry. Therefore, she probably would not survive the next chapter. As villains, of course, they had to be more cautious. If they did not want to be found out, they had to be dead. And when the time came, what? Shuanger was brought to Lixiang Garden by Xia Feng last night? After the Brotherhood, it was time to get angry for a woman. Xia Feng, you true demon. Chapter 413. At dawn, Xia Feng woke up in a daze. Qiao Shuang was no longer in the room. He was lying on the floor. However, the bloodstains on the bed seemed to be proof of last night's revelry. But inexplicably, Xia Feng looked at his tidy clothes and felt that something was not quite right. Did I do it? I probably did it. My waist still hurts. But why does it feel so unreal? Actually, it's not unreal. It's just that. I've already stopped, but Xiao Shuang's voice still seems to be ringing in my ears? It seems to have been ringing the whole night? Forget it. I'm probably too tired and I'm hallucinating. At the same time, outside the Imperial Advisor's residence, Xiao Shuang walked to the door and deliberately pulled her hair and clothes. Her face was full of loneliness. Eldest young mistress? Outside the door, the two guards' eyes narrowed. Especially when they saw their young mistress' current state. Could it be that the first prince, really, don't tell anyone? Don't tell grandfather. Also, it's cold. Remember to wear thicker clothes when you're on duty at night. Xiao Shuang's eyes were filled with tears. Her tone was tired. She walked into the residence and went straight to her own palace. He was a servant after all. If he gave him some worthless care, he should just die. Eldest young mistress is really kind and compassionate to her servants. To be able to protect young mistress in this life, I can die without regrets. But should we report it to the Imperial Advisor? Eldest young mistress must have been bullied. The Imperial Advisor is at a critical moment in his seclusion. If we disturb him now, but eldest young mistress, sigh. She will marry into the Xia family eventually. If the first prince dares to betray young mistress in the future. Does he really think that we don't know that the so-called demon dragon was directed and acted by Xia Xing himself? In the realm, Ling Xiao stood in the Sky Palace. Ning was practicing a set of fist techniques in front of him. In just half a month's time, the little girl's cultivation had actually stepped into the Soul Sea realm. Her providence had also increased to 1,500 points. She was indeed the destined girl. She was born extraordinary. As long as she cultivated step by step, she would always stand out among her peers. At this moment, the spiritual qi in this area was so dense that it could be said to be terrifying. The God Emperors and God Kings of the Xing clan and Fire clan also had breakthroughs recently. Ning do you have a spirit treasure that you like? For example, swords, sabers, or something like that. Forget it, you pick one yourself. Ling Xiao took out his cosmos ring and waved it casually. Spiritual lights flashed all over the sky and piles of spirit treasures appeared in front of him instantly. Dense spirit qi spread out, forming layers of ripples in the air. Roar! Floey's figure instantly appeared in the sky. Her dog eyes shone with a strange light, and there seemed to be sparkling at the corner of her mouth. Ah! Ning was startled. Ling Xiao frowned slightly. He struck out with his palm and sent Hua Hua Fan flying 1,000 feet away. You scared my Ninger, I'll eat you. Don't worry, Ninger. This is Big Brother's pet. You're the ruler of this realm. If you don't like anyone, just draw your blade. Take your time. Don't be in a hurry. If you see something you like, just pick it up. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and walked into the palace. Yi Qingchan was sitting cross-legged with her eyes closed. She seemed to be cultivating. At this moment, a terrifying coldness was spreading around her. The entire hall was as cold as winter, piercingly cold. Suddenly, thunderclouds gathered in the sky above the palace. Countless bolts of black lightning snaked across the sky, trying to tear the girl apart. She made a breakthrough? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows. Lightning flashed around him. However, in the next instant, the tribulation lightning that was originally descending suddenly stopped. Looking closely, there seemed to be frost on it. In half a second, it broke on its own. Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes. He had a better understanding of Yi Qingchan's strength. This girl usually didn't show her strength, but her true combat strength was probably beyond the level of a divine general. Even though Ling Xiao was a divine lord, he was still a bit afraid of the ice power that she had just used. Buzz! Yi Qingchan opened her eyes. There was a flash of blue in them. But at this moment, she didn't seem to be happy. Deep in her eyes, there was a hint of disappointment. Master. But when she saw the figure in front of her, Yi Qingchan's face lit up. She turned into a blur and threw herself into Ling Zhao's arms. What's wrong? Why are you crying after making a breakthrough? Ling Zhao lowered his head and looked at Yi Qingchan's red eyes. His face was calm. Nothing. It's just that. I'm very happy to see you. Master, I don't want to leave you for even a second. As long as you don't want to, no one can make you leave. Ling Zhao said indifferently, but Yi Qingchan raised her head in surprise and looked at him. Is that true? Is there really no one who can make Qingchan leave? But why do I feel like I'm going to leave you? Master, if I really forget you one day, please don't be angry, okay? I'm not afraid of the heavenly Tao's reincarnation. I'm not afraid of my soul being destroyed. Yes, I won't leave you, Master. Yi Qingchan squeezed out a smile. But she hugged Ling Zhao even tighter. Brother. Clang. The sound of something heavy falling to the ground came from the door. Ling Zhao and Yi Qingchan turned around. They saw Ning covering her eyes. A white lotus had fallen in front of her. It was Hua Yang's Tao artifact, the white lotus of void. Perhaps she was worried that she would break the Tao artifact. She covered her eyes with one hand and quickly squatted down. She picked up the white lotus and covered her eyes again. Pfft! Yi Qingchan smiled through her tears. Ling Zhao shook his head with a bitter smile. This girl is so cute. Have you chosen? Ning only opened her hands and nodded shyly when Ling Zhao and Yi Qingchan walked over hand in hand. This white lotus of void is not bad. But Ning, why did you only choose one? Brother, one is enough. I don't need too many Tao artifacts now. Ning pursed her red lips. She looked very obedient. Come, I'll choose a few more suitable ones for you. In the end, under Ling Zhao's insistence, Ning had 3 more spiritual treasures in her hands. They were a Tao artifact robe, an octagonal ancient pagoda, and a green jade pendant. Okay, these 3 are all defensive treasures. I'll be at ease if you carry them with you. Ling Zhao smiled and rubbed Ning Er's head. She smiled and said, Anyway, I won't leave you. With you around, who dares to bully me? One day you will grow up and look for your own opportunities. Ling Zhao shook his head and looked at the sky. Ning pouted and muttered, I don't want to. I want to follow you, Dragon Fortune City, the first prince's hall. Sikong Hui looked at Xiafeng coldly. There was no longer the reverence on his face. He was a devil. Just this point was enough for Sikong Hui to completely break up with him. Fine, I'll invite you to a martial arts competition and expose your hypocritical face in front of you. Brother Hui, I called you here because I have something to discuss with you. Xiafeng smiled bitterly and sighed softly. If you have something to say, just say it. I also have something to tell you. Sikong Hui's expression remained indifferent. He hated it. He hated that he went to the border for 3 years and didn't accompany Qiao Shuang. One could imagine how Shuang had spent the past 3 years. Following a devil all day, it must be like a year. Devil. Everyone had the right to kill him. Oh? Okay, then I'll say it first. Brother Hui, I've thought about it for a long time and feel that you and Shuang are the most compatible. Boom. The fluctuations outside Sikong Hui's body surged for an instant. Then, he looked at Xiafeng with a dumbfounded expression. What was he up to now? Give Qiao Shuang to me? What do you mean? Sikong Hui was a little confused and excited, but his rationality told him to restrain himself. After all, a devil's mind was too sinister. If he was not careful, he might fall into his trap. Brother Hui, I know you think I'm weak, cowardly, and not like a man, but have you really considered my feelings? Xiafeng raised his head and looked outside the hall. There were tears in his eyes. Chapter 4:14. How do you feel? Sikong Hui frowned and suddenly remembered the rainy night at the border. That day, he rushed into the enemy's camp and fell into a trap. It was Xia Feng who led hundreds of cavalry and descended from the sky to save him. At that moment, to be honest, Sikong Hui was touched. Especially the countless scars on Xia Feng's body, which made him secretly swear that no matter what he became in the future, he would follow him to death. Not for the dragon protection, not for the scholarly achievements, but for the bloody battle tonight. Probably the young men at that age were all hot-blooded and righteous. Even though his father had warned him time and time again that the royal family had no sincerity. But Sikong Hui still felt grateful to Xia Feng in his heart. However, never in his wildest dreams did he expect that Xia Feng would summon him to the imperial palace for, "My life has been difficult and difficult. What I say and do is not up to me. I have to be cautious and humble, step by step." Why? Xia Feng smiled bitterly with sorrow in his eyes. "I lost my mother when I was 10 years old. I endured and worked hard. Being in the imperial palace, I was targeted everywhere. Even my father was wary of me." The more Xia Feng spoke, the more agitated he became. "Do you think I can be like you, acting recklessly and doing things according to my heart? If I can't get the world, I can only die. But you, with the Sikong family's support, you will never fall into a desperate situation. Sikong Hui, do you think I don't want to give Shuang happiness? I can't do it. How many people in the imperial capital want me to die? If I care too much about Shuang she will eventually become a chess piece in the eyes of others. Forget it. Instead of 3 people suffering, it's better to let me bear it alone. You are my brother, and she is my love. I will be relieved to entrust her to you. In this way, I can have no distractions and wholeheartedly fight for the throne." Boom! Suddenly, there was a spiritual light outside Xia Feng's body. The temperature of the entire hall dropped a few degrees for no reason at this time. Sikong Hui stared blankly at the young man in front of him. His lips trembled slightly, and he didn't say anything for a long time. Big brother. It turned out, Big Brother's heart was so complicated and bitter. So what if he is a devil? Who said that all devils are ruthless and ruthless? I think Big Brother is very good. For the sake of Shuang happiness, he shouldered his own pain and wanted to entrust her to me. For such a person, the only reason he became a devil was to become stronger. Only then would he be able to protect the people he loved. For the first time in his life, Sikong Hui felt that the devil was different from what he had imagined. "Little brother Hun, have you understood?" Xia Feng sighed, but there was a strange gloom in his eyes. "Sikong Hui, there will come a day when I will uproot the Sikong clan." "Big brother! I understand now. Don't worry, in the future, I will definitely use the power of the Sikong clan to help you ascend the throne." Sikong Hui took a deep breath, and his gaze toward Xia Feng was filled with gratitude. Everything made sense, everything made sense. Xia Feng had probably turned into a demon for the sake of power. He had pretended to be cold to Shuang but in fact, he was protecting her. But why did he kill the great Zhou's eldest princess and seize the Emperor Vane's spirit gold? Could it be that Big Brother's body was unwell? Yes, that must be it. Although devil cultivators improve their realms quickly, their mental states are often unstable. This was the reason why people often said that devils did as they pleased. It was really difficult for them to control their hearts. The spirit gold was Great Zhou's precious treasure. It was said that it could nourish the heart meridian and calm the mind. "Big brother, you..." "Oh no, oh no!" Just as Sikong Hui was about to ask Xia Feng about it with a bitter expression, a panicked voice suddenly came from outside the main hall. Xia Feng frowned slightly. When he turned his head, he saw an imperial guard rushing over in a panic. When he saw Sikong Hui, he was obviously stunned for a moment. "Why are you panicking? First Prince, just say it. General Sikong is not an outsider." Yes. First Prince. Miss Xiao Shuang is dead. What? In an instant, Xia Feng and Sikong Hui were stunned at the same time. Then, they were shocked and resentful. What the f***ck? It was not easy for me to trick Sikong Hui into working for me. I was ready to launch an all-out attack and ascend the throne in one fell swoop. In the end, I lost my bargaining chip? Moreover, for some reason, Xia Feng felt a faint sense of uneasiness in his heart. I thought I was standing on the 10th floor. Why do I feel that there is someone on the 11th floor now? What is going on? Sikong Hun grabbed the guard's armor and roared. I don't know, but I heard that the Grand Tutor has come out of seclusion. Now everyone in the Qiao family is crying. Whoosh! Sikong Hui gritted his teeth and rushed out of the palace without caring about Xia Feng, who was behind him. How could it be? He was imagining the scene of their wedding just now. How could Xiao Shuang be dead? When they parted yesterday, although she was haggard, she was clearly happy. Who is it? Who killed my Shuang? Xia Feng did not speak from the beginning to the end. He only looked at Sikong Hui, who had disappeared into the distance, with a serious expression. He was secretly muttering to himself. What is going on? Xiao Shuang obviously liked Sikong Hui. Otherwise, she would not have gone to the pear garden to look for me last night. But how could she be dead in just one night? The Grand Tutor's residence was heavily guarded. Moreover, the Grand Tutor, Qiao Yunli, was guarding it, a 6th-grade divine emperor. Not to mention ordinary people, even divine emperors could not easily enter the residence to kill Xiao Shuang. Unless, Xia Feng's eyes narrowed slightly as a figure appeared in his mind. But it did not make sense. Why would that lord kill Xiao Shuang? If he wanted, the entire Great Xia could be turned into ashes with a snap of his fingers. Was it the Empress? Or the second prince and the others? In the end, Xia Feng took out 2 spiritual talismans from his Qianquan bag. He held them in his hand and walked out of the palace. Xiao Shuang was still his fiancée in name. She was dead. If he did not show up, he was afraid that he would attract more criticism. He found the 2 spiritual talismans in an ancient site. One could shift space, and the other could withstand a blow from a divine emperor. No matter who killed Xiao Shuang, someone was going to make a move on him. In the Grand Tutor's residence, a divine power rushed to the sky. All the guards and maids knelt on the ground in fear. In the center of the palace, Xiao Shuang's body was placed on a jade bed. In front of her, a white-haired old man in a black robe stood quietly. A wisp of majestic power was about to pour down like a sudden rain. Boom! Shuang. It was not until Sikong Hui barged in that the silent and oppressive atmosphere in the palace was broken. Qiao Yunli frowned slightly as he looked at the young man who knelt in front of Xiao Shuang's coffin. His old eyes were deep and seemed to have stars in them. You are that boy from the Sikong family? Grandfather Qiao. Shuang, how did you die? Sikong Hui's eyes were blood-red from tears, and the ferocious look on his face made Qiao Yunli feel a little apprehensive. He did not expect that the first person to come today would be young Master Sikong. Shuang. Immediately after, another cry of grief came from outside the palace. Xia Feng's figure descended from the sky. His black robe was shining brightly, and his face was also filled with shock and grief. But inexplicably, the eyes of the 2 guards standing in the palace suddenly flashed with a cold, killing intent. Chapter 4:15. State Preceptor. Who killed Shuang? Xia Feng's eyes were cold, but he wasn't as grief-stricken as Sikong Hui. However, Qiao Yunli didn't say anything. He just stood there silently. The atmosphere in the hall gradually became oppressive, making it hard to breathe. Soon, Emperor Xia, Sikong Yu, and the other god emperors arrived. After all, Qiao Shuang was the state preceptor's granddaughter and the only successor of the Qiao family. Her death would definitely cause a huge storm. In fact, Everyone who was related to this matter would probably be sacrificed with their lives. State Preceptor. What's going on? Emperor Xia walked up to Qiao Shuang's body and looked at the red mark on her neck. His eyes narrowed slightly. This morning, someone went to call Shuang for breakfast, but found that she had killed herself in her room. Qiao Yunli's voice was calm, and no one could tell whether he was happy or sad. However, the more he was like this, the more oppressive it was. Even Emperor Xia felt a headache from the anger of a sixth-grade god emperor. She killed herself? Everyone in the hall was stunned. Why would Qiao Shuang kill herself without any reason? She was the successor of the Qiao family and the fiancée of the first prince. Although Qiao Shuang's talent wasn't monstrous, she could be considered a genius in the Great Xia. Why would she kill herself at such a young age? Conspiracy. This smelled like a conspiracy. How is this possible? Xia Feng's heart turned cold for no reason. Ch Qiao Shuang couldn't have killed herself because of the shame after I did it with her last night, right? But she was the one who initiated it, and wasn't she very happy when she cheered? Although Xia Feng still felt that last night's experience was unreal, Qiao Shuang's panting didn't seem fake. I heard that someone forced Shuang to dance with you at the Cloud Dream Immortal Tower? Qiao Yunli was in seclusion all year round, so he didn't know about Ling Zhao's identity. Although the servants said that even Emperor Xia had to be humble in front of that mysterious lord. Even so, Qiao Yunli was a sixth-grade god emperor, the backbone of the Great Xia. How could he be afraid of an unknown person? Moreover, if it was in the past, Qiao Yunli wouldn't have offended him. However, if Shuang really died, then no matter who it was, they had to pay the price. Yes, a cold light flickered in Sikong Hui's eyes. It shouldn't be. At that time, Shuang was indeed ashamed and resentful, but when the two of them reached the stone bridge, she had already calmed down and discussed a plan to deal with Xia Feng. How come in the blink of an eye, Emperor, in the entire Grand Xia, who can force my grandson to perform a dance? Qiao Yunli turned to look at Xia Feng. And in front of the first prince? Watching his fiancée dance for others? This Feng what the hell is going on? Emperor Xia shouted coldly. Could it be that Qiao Shuang was humiliated to death? But who would have such guts? Was there something wrong with Xia Feng's brain? He actually dared to humiliate the grandson of the Grand Preceptor, his own fiancé? Imperial Father, it's that lord. Xia Feng gritted his teeth and said softly. What? Emperor Xia's expression froze. Even though Ling Xiao had planted a soul imprint on him, his consciousness had not been erased. Therefore, the shock at this moment was real. The panic was also real. Performing a dance for His Excellency. How could that be considered a humiliation? It was obviously the glory of the Qiao clan. But, His Excellency had ordered that his identity was not to be revealed. If so, how could he appease the Grand Preceptor? Should he kill him? But this old man was a sixth-stage divine emperor, one stage higher than Emperor Xia. If he were to kill him, the name of the Grand Xia would probably be changed. It was better to return to the palace first and report this matter to Master for him to decide. Oh, Grand Preceptor! Shuang's death pained me greatly. When I return to the palace later, I will issue a decree to confer her. Emperor! Before Emperor Xia could finish his sentence, Qiao Yunli had already interrupted him with a hateful voice. My grandson's death is unclear. Emperor, are you not going to uphold justice for my Qiao clan? Buzz! The two great forces were like the collapse of heaven and earth. Instantly, everyone's expression changed. Especially the cold glint in Qiao Yunli's eyes, it made people's hearts palpitate for no reason. Uphold justice? Emperor Xia's expression darkened. How would he uphold justice? Do you want the Grand Xia to fall, or do you want me to accompany your granddaughter? Ch. I, Qiao Yunli, have always served the Great Xia dynasty wholeheartedly. I have always been loyal and devoted. I have also expanded our territory and contributed greatly to the great Xia dynasty. Emperor, now that my grandson is dead, shouldn't you capture the culprit and avenge him? Although Qiao Yunli's words were reasonable, they were also words that hurt the emperor's heart. If Emperor Xia did not agree to avenge Qiao Shuang today, the hearts of the officials in the imperial court would definitely be dampened. If the hearts of the people were scattered, it would be difficult to lead the troop. In an instant, the expressions of everyone in the palace changed. Especially the 2 guards who were on duty at night. Their eyes flickered with hesitation. Qiao Shuang's death was very suspicious. However, the culprit was probably not that mysterious lord. Instead, it was when they thought of Qiao Shuang's loneliness and despair when she returned last night and her concern for them, the 2 guards looked at each other and finally walked into the palace. Lord Grand Preceptor, Murderous intent flowed in Qiao Yunli's eyes. A mighty heavenly might surged out and nearly killed the 2 guards on the spot. Last night, young Miss was called to the Pear Garden by the first prince. It seems, what? Hearing this, not only did Qiao Yunli's face tremble, but even Sikong Hui's eyes suddenly surged with murderous intent. Pear Garden? The largest inn in Dragon Fortune City? In the middle of the night? Oh? Is there such a thing? Surprisingly, Emperor Xia did not feel angry. Instead, he felt a faint joy in his heart. Xia Feng, you really did a good job. If you can use your life to quell the Grand Preceptor's anger, this is simply killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Xia Feng's eyes trembled slightly. Don't you dare slander me. We are willing to use our lives to prove that young Miss returned from the Pear Garden last night. Her clothes were disheveled and she looked desperate. I'm afraid, Puchi. Before the guard finished speaking, Qiao Yunli suddenly stretched out his hand and directly grabbed him. The soul light in his eyes surged as he directly searched the guard's soul memory. Seeing this, Xia Feng's body trembled. He suddenly clenched his fist. It was obvious that he was prepared to escape. So it's you. Xia Feng. You bastard. Sikong Hui's expression was ferocious. The spiritual light around his body suddenly became dazzling. He took a step forward and angrily rushed toward Xia Feng. Xia Feng did not hesitate at all. He gently raised his hand. The monstrous spiritual light transformed into a seal and fiercely smashed on Sikong Hui's chest. However, what made him feel terrified was that at this time, young Master Sikong seemed to be awe-inspiring and fearless. His figure still appeared in front of him after receiving his seal. In the next moment, he stretched out his hand. Blood spilled from the corner of his mouth, and the clothes on his chest were actually shattered. A stalk of spiritual gold suddenly appeared and protected Xia Feng's chest. A mournful sneer suddenly appeared on Sikong Hui's face. As expected, you are indeed a demon. Shuang'er must have been forced to death by you. It must be. What? Everyone was puzzled. How did Xia Feng become a demon? Emperor Vane's spiritual gold. It was not until Sikong Hui gritted his teeth and said these 4 words that the confusion on everyone's faces quietly froze. Then, they looked in the direction of Xia Feng's chest with a look of disbelief. What the f***ck? Chapter 4:16. Beep. The destined child is filled with despair and anger. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Inside the realm, Ling Xiao heard the system notification, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. Damn! The western frontier was truly chaotic. Another devil had actually appeared in the world. But why hasn't the saint's divine envoy appeared yet? Qiu Qinghan was not qualified to be the divine envoy. She was most likely a spy the saint had planted in Shijiang. Ling Xiao didn't kill her because he wanted to use her eyes and mouth to lure the real prey. River Feather was dead and Xia Feng's luck was great. He wouldn't die anytime soon. As long as he left some marks on Xiaofeng's body, he would be able to find the divine envoy. Great. Do I, Ling Xiao, need to do it personally and go around killing people? As long as I sit here, I will be able to grasp the power of the world in my hands. Do you think I'm really lustful and want to touch Qiao Shuang? I just can't bear to let such a good girl like her be taken advantage of by a bastard like Xiaofeng. What? Then why kill her? I'll use her death to expose true demon Xiaofeng. Only then will I be able to answer to Xiaochuan and his son. Damn. I, Ling Xiao, am loyal and righteous, the light of justice. What? Emperor Vane Immortal Gold? The faces of Emperor Xia and the others were instantly filled with astonishment. Especially the spiritual flower in Xiaofeng's chest. It was really magical. It emitted a dense spiritual glow and created an immortal shadow. At first glance, one could tell that it was no ordinary object. Although no one had seen the real Emperor Vane's spiritual gold before, where did Xiaofeng get such a miraculous item? Moreover, if someone else testified, they might be accused of slander. But Xikong Hui was Xiaofeng's best friend. His words were naturally a little more truthful. It was a match. Everything was a match. He killed the great Zhou's princess, stole her immortal gold, and used the Xia family's inherited martial arts. But how did he escape from the group of great Zhou's god-emperors? You're lying. This is not an Emperor Vane immortal gold. This is an immortal herb from the upper realm that Lord gave me. Xiaofeng shouted angrily. Compared to forcing Qiao Shuang to her death, the identity of the true demon made him feel even more terrified. Once he carried such a reputation, there would be no place for him in the entire western border. And the saint would never let him go. Xikong Hui, that bastard! How dare they slander him? But how did he know that there was immortal gold in my chest? Wait a minute, last night, when he was fighting with Qiao Shuang, he must have taken off his clothes. Although what happened after that was a little strange, but it was no longer important. Bitch! Are you trying to drag me down with you? How could this be? It was clearly a good game of chess. How did it end up like this? I'm having a mental breakdown. Sir, please show yourself. Only you can prove my innocence now. Pucci, you're dreaming. I've been planning this for so long. Step by step, it's finally time to draw in the net. You want me to prove your innocence? Then who's going to help me fish for the Saint's oracle? Myself? No. That's too dangerous. Even though I have the invincible trump card of a Daelord's incarnation, I really don't want to take any risks at all. How dare you? You're about to die and you still dare to slander Sir. Xiaofeng, you've really disappointed me. Emperor Xia's eyes trembled. His heart was filled with disdain. Do you think that by pushing the blame to Sir, you'll be able to survive? Xiaofeng, you're so naive. Father, Xiaofeng wanted to cry. This immortal gold was given to me by Sir. You're just a bunch of mortals. It's fine if you don't know me. But how can you be so sure that I'm a demon? Until now, Xiaofeng had never doubted that the immortal gold in his chest was really the great Zhou dynasty's treasure, the Emperor Vane immortal gold. After all, in his opinion, Sir was a god-emperor. Why did he have to go through so much trouble to kill him? The chosen one blindly trusts the villain. Congratulations to the host for plundering 500 luck points and 5,000 villain points. Shut up. Xiaofeng, you betrayed the great Xia dynasty. Your crime is unforgivable. You should be killed. Emperor Xia shouted coldly. Golden light appeared in his hand. It turned into a dragon seal and fell on Xiaofeng's head. The power of imprisoning heaven and earth caused the latter's expression to change drastically. A talisman in his hand suddenly flashed with golden light. At the same time, the sky demon light around Xiaofeng started to flash. It condensed into a black flood dragon shadow and rushed toward Xikong Hun's angry seal. If I don't kill you today, my surname isn't Xia. Beyond redemption. Beyond redemption. I, Xiaofeng, have been living in seclusion for 25 years. I've been careful at every step and plotted carefully. In the end, I've been destroyed by you adulterers. It's really a demonic technique. Everyone in the hall was shocked. Especially when they saw the evil aura in the flood dragon shadow, they suddenly realized something. As expected, this great Xia dynasty's first prince is really a demon. The dragon seal and the talisman collided. Vast divine power suddenly surged and crushed the entire hall. However, the flood dragon's shadow did not land on Sikonghan. Sikongyu, who was beside him, clenched his fist and crushed the flood dragon in his hand. Sikonghan, just you wait. Xiaofeng's eyes narrowed. The second talisman in his hand suddenly lit up with golden light, and his figure strangely disappeared on the spot. Damn! It turned out that this was what he relied on to escape from the great Zhou dynasty's emperors. Above the void, Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, and the smile on his face grew wider. Originally, he was still thinking about how to help Xiaofeng without leaving a trace. It would be a pity for a good young man like him to die in Dragon Fortune City. He should go to a wider world and be a diligent treasure-hunting dog to complete his mission. Of course, Ling Xiao believed that even if he did not make a move, Xiaofeng would not die. After all, he still had 2,300 points of providence and was protected by the heavenly Tao. However, he did not expect Xiaofeng to escape so easily. Talisman? Interesting. Let's go. Follow him and harvest the ruins that he found. As soon as Ling Xiao finished speaking, a figure immediately rushed out of the realm and rushed out of the city. Ling Xiao had set up a trap on the Emperor Vane's spirit gold. Therefore, no matter where Xiaofeng ran to or what he transformed into, he would not be able to escape from Ling Xiao's palm. He would let him jump around for a while and harvest the ruins in the western border. Then, he would properly intimidate him and use up his life-saving talisman. At that time, Ling Xiao would descend from the sky with a body full of righteous golden light and kill this demon for the world. Perfect. The plot was full of ups and downs, and the layout was meticulous. Everything was logical. I, Ling Xiao, am worthy of being the best director. I'll arrange the play for you. All you have to do is follow my script and walk until you die. Buzz. Ling Xiao stepped out of the void and appeared in the main hall of the Qiao residence. Above his head there was a faint world. It was filled with immortal clouds, and the image of a dragon was floating. A golden sun was blooming with thousands of rays of light. It was indescribably mysterious and domineering, making people want to submit to it. Even though Qiao Yunli was a 6th-grade divine emperor, when he saw the figure that suddenly appeared, his aged eyes were filled with intense shock. Developing a world. What kind of horrifying cultivation method was this? Could it be this person was the mysterious lord that everyone was talking about? Lord! Emperor Xia bowed, his face filled with sincerity. Qiao Yunli and Sikongyu hesitated for a moment, then bowed as well. What a joke! Emperor Xia was not a fool. If this person did not have a great background, why would he, the ruler of a dynasty, be so humble? Inexplicably, Qiao Yunli felt that it was fortunate that Shuang did not die because of this person. Otherwise, his Qiao family would really be removed from the great Xia. Ran away? Ling Zhao's tone was cold. Emperor Xia knelt on the ground with a plop. Lord, I am useless. What the hell? Qiao Yunli and Sikongyu's expressions changed. They were even more suspicious of Ling Zhao's identity. Was this necessary? What kind of identity did this person have to make the emperor kneel? Suddenly, the two pillars of the great Xia were in a difficult position. To kneel or not to kneel? Chapter 4:17. I divined that he wouldn't die here, so I didn't interfere. Everything is predestined and has nothing to do with you. Rise. Ling Xiao said calmly. He raised his head and looked at Xiao Yunli and Sikong Yu. The two of you have decent cultivations. Are you willing to be my slaves? Xiao Yunli and Sikong Yu looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with shock. Be your slaves? Was he so direct? If you are my slaves, you will be able to ascend to the immortal world one day. If you are unwilling, you will die. Boom! Seeing that the two of them were hesitating, a lightning sun appeared above Ling Zhao's head. Perfected laws contained unparalleled power. Although Xiao Yunli and Sikong Yu were god emperors, they had never comprehended any laws. At that moment, hesitation appeared on their faces. Being a slave didn't sound like a good job. However, ascending to the immortal world was something that cultivators yearned for. Could it be that this lord came from the upper realm? How was that possible? No one from the lower realm had ascended to the immortal world for hundreds of years. How did he cross the lower realm and arrive here? My lord, how can we believe your words? Sikong Yu frowned and asked in a deep voice. However, the moment he said that, he saw a gloomy look in Ling Zhao's eyes. Then, the world above his head descended and sucked Sikong Yu into it. In the blink of an eye, the two of them disappeared. Only the people in the hall were left looking around in shock. Sikong Yu was in the air. He was dumbfounded. What appeared in front of him was an otherworldly scene. The sun was bright and the sky was blue. Rich qi brushed past his ears like flowing water, but for some indescribable reason, he felt that he seemed to be a little cold. Because at this moment, the white-clothed lord in front of him was looking at him with a smile that was not a smile. There were also several figures with terrifying auras standing around him. Sikong Yu was a fourth-stage god emperor. Although he wasn't the strongest in the western border, he was still considered a tyrant. However, Hua Heng's cultivation had reached the fourth-stage god emperor. Xing Shen was at the peak of the fourth-stage god emperor. He was only a step away from the fifth-stage god emperor. Another god king from the Xian clan broke through to the great emperor realm. With the three of them working together and the 9 dragons sky imprisoning array holding them back, a mere Sikong Yu of course, for the sake of safety, Ling Xiao did not bring Xiao Yunli with him. Only by pressuring them with both grace and power would they be convinced. It doesn't matter if you don't want to be a slave. Then be my nourishment. Sir, who are they? Sikong Yu swallowed hard. They are all my slaves. Ling Xiao smiled faintly as he turned around and headed towards the Sky Hall. Sir, I am willing to submit. No, I am willing to be your slave. No, I want to be an adult's dog. Woof, woof, woof. Behind him, Sikong Yu howled with a grim voice, whereas Ling Xiao shook his head instead and vanished on the spot without looking back. Not just anyone can be my dog. This is an honor, but it's a pity that you missed it. No, my lord. Boom. Spiritual light began to surge violently as layers of space crumbled. Ling Xiao stood in front of the Sky Hall and looked at Ning who was using her spiritual energy to activate the White Lotus, as well as Yi Qinchan, who was beside her, giving her pointers. The corners of his mouth curled into a smile. The matter of the Great Xia had basically come to an end. Next, he did not plan to head to the Great Qin Empire immediately. Instead, he wanted to release his god of war from the cage. The Great Qin Empire's empress, Qin Wushuang, was known as the Demon Empress after all. Such a person would not easily give up the throne. Xiao Beifa was very strong. His corpse-killing Dao was definitely honed from countless massacres. However, when it came to marching and fighting, Ning Tiance was clearly stronger. At that time, he would bring the might of 2 dynasties to the Great Qin Empire. Even if the Empress had unparalleled luck and demonic arts, what could she do? Young master! Brother! Yi Qinchan and Ning turned to look at him with joy in their eyes. Yes, Ning I will go to the Great Zhou Empire in 2 days and rescue your father. At that time, you two will be reunited. Ling Xiao reached out and rubbed Ning head with a smile on his face. With Ning in his hands, Ning Tian's weakness would always be under his control. However, if he forced him to stay by his side, it would inevitably cause resentment in the former's heart. How could a person with the heavenly array Dao heart be compared to a fool like Xia Sheng? After a few words of persuasion, Ning was willing to open his soul. See. After all, Ning Tian's was completely convinced. At this time, it would be easier to persuade him with emotions. As for the god of war, he was destined to be a person who valued relationships and loyalty. However, it was a pity that he trusted the wrong person this time. If not for Ling Zhao's instigation, perhaps after many years, Zhou Minmin might have found her conscience. Ling Xiao had seen the regret of the great Zhou princess before her death. Or in the end, Zhou Minmin died of heart disease. Ning and the ninth prince, Xia Chuan, happened to come to the great Zhou Empire. The father and daughter reunited. The son-in-law and father-in-law reunited as the god of war, suppressed the 8 dynasties and dominated the Xi-Jiang. The ending of the story was perfect, but in the end it was all Xia Chen's fault. He had to be reborn. If not for him, how could Ling Xiao go to the small dynasty at the border of the Xi-Jiang for no reason? How could he meet Ning and know about the existence of Ning Tian's? Even if the latter reunited as the god of war, he was at most a war saber in Ling Zhao's hand. He was no longer the main character of the world. Brother, do you not want Ning any more? Ning face was filled with grievance. She had never seen Ning Tian's since she was young. Although blood was thicker than water between father and daughter. However, Ling Xiao was the one who truly warmed her life. The grief of her mother-in-law's death was still in her heart. Ling Zhao's companionship and love had already made this 12-year-old girl fall in love with him. Although she did not know what love was at this age, it did not affect her desire to stay by her brother's side. Why would I not want you? Ning Tian's is your father after all. If you stay by his side— No, I want to follow brother and sister Qinchan. Ning turned her head and looked at Yi Qinchan with tears in her eyes. Sister Qinchan, didn't you say that brother will never leave me? Are you lying to me? Why would we lie to you? Yi Qinchan smiled and rubbed Ning's head. Young master, all right. If you really want to follow me, you can tell Ning Tian's yourself. Ling Xiao smiled helplessly. When he raised his head, he saw Xing Shen descending from the sky with a figure. At this moment, Si Kongyu had already lost his human form. Ling Xiao gave Yi Qinchan a look. The latter immediately understood and brought Ning into the palace. Master, well done. You can leave now. Ling Xiao casually threw a Qiankuan pouch filled with elixirs to Xing Shen. He walked towards Si Kongyu and slashed out with the immemorial devil blade in his hand. Buzz! Heaven and earth trembled. Great Xia, Count Zhongyi dead. He was 107 years old. Chapter 4:18. In the main hall of the Grand Tutor's residence. At this moment, Emperor Xia and the others were all standing in place with solemn expressions. They did not dare to leave at all. Ling Xiao and Si Kongyu had suddenly disappeared. It was obvious that the latter's attitude had angered that mysterious lord. However, they did not know how the lord would punish Count Zhongyi of the Great Xia. Plop! Just as everyone was deep in thought, a head suddenly fell from the sky and landed on the ground of the hall. Everyone's expression turned cold. When they looked down again, their eyes instantly widened. Father! Sikong Hui's face turned pale. He looked up at the white-clothed figure descending from the sky. His eyes suddenly surged with despair and death. I'll fight it out with you! Pucci. Ling Xiao did not even look at him. Sikong Hui, who was originally in mid-air, was suddenly enveloped by a ball of golden flames. In just an instant, he was burned to ashes. Oh, Grand Tutor, have you thought about it? Ling Xiao landed and looked at Xiao Yunli with clear eyes. His tone was still calm. I am willing to be the Lord's slave. F***ck. Do I need to King think about it? The older a person gets, the more afraid of death he is. Moreover, following this lord might really allow him to ascend to the upper realm one day. Why not? I am not a coward. I wanted to submit to the Lord from the beginning. I was purely subdued by the Lord's righteousness, loyalty, and supreme spirit. Open your heart. Ling Zhao's expression was cold. The soul light in his eyes turned into a seal. Qiao Yunli did not dare to hesitate at all. He allowed the seal to enter his soul sea and turn into shackles. Kill them all. Xia Xing, gather all the talented youths of the great Xia in 3 days' time to the palace. Ling Zhao's figure disappeared again. Suddenly, spiritual light flickered around Emperor Xia and Sikong Hui. The entire main hall of the Grand Tutor's residence instantly turned into hell. In front of a barren mountain at the border of the great Xia, Xia Feng looked at the Ling Jin in his hand with a gloomy expression. There was a faint trace of doubt in his eyes. For some reason, he felt that everything he experienced today was like a conspiracy. But who exactly was it that wanted to plot against him so deliberately? The Empress was the most suspicious. However, as the crown prince of the Great Xia dynasty, it was a humiliation for the entire Great Xia dynasty to be labeled as a demon. Could it be Sikong Hui? But what benefits would he gain by doing so? A strong sense of uneasiness filled Xia Feng's heart. It was as if there was an invisible hand playing with his fate. Moreover, now that he had lost his status as a prince of the Great Xia dynasty, it was impossible for him to enter the secret realm of the Cold Moon Immortal Palace. Unless, Xia Feng sighed and looked at the peak of the barren mountain with a deep gaze. The only thing they could do now was to take the few hidden ruins of the western border into their pockets. Then, he would find a way to sneak into the Immortal Palace and obtain the identity of a true disciple. At that time, Han Xianzi, do you still remember? The prince of the Great Xia who stood in the corner and looked at you as if you were an immortal? However, just as Xia Feng's figure appeared at the top of the barren mountain and waved his hand to open the door to the ruins in front of him, a fierce shout suddenly came from the void. A divine king grand aura descended from the sky, instantly causing his footsteps to halt. Xia Feng's eyes narrowed. When he looked up, he saw a figure with a ghost mask descending and blocking in front of him. This is the forbidden area of my clan. Trespassers will die. What? Xia Feng's face was filled with surprise. However, he did not dare to stay any longer and turned to walk down the mountain. Damn! Even the setting of the ruins has changed. How much did my rebirth change the world's layout? However, it seems that my influence is still quite big. When Xia Feng's figure disappeared, the divine king sneered. He was even more respectful of his master now. My lord, you are indeed a master of foresight. Wherever Xia Feng goes, ancient ruins will appear. 2 days in a row. No matter where Xia Feng went, a divine king would appear and chase him away. Moreover, he did not know if it was an illusion, but he felt that the divine king who stopped him seemed to be the same person. Damn! Is someone following me on purpose? Suddenly, Xia Feng felt the soles of his feet turn cold and his body trembled for a moment. Then, the spirit talisman in his hand flashed with golden light. Whoosh! Xia Feng's figure disappeared. When he reappeared, he was thousands of miles away. Even so, he still seemed to be worried. He took off his python robe and hesitated for a moment. Then, he suddenly stretched out his hand and used the law of Tao to cut his face into countless bloody scars. It seems that I can only sneak into the Cold Moon Celestial Palace and change my identity temporarily. Humph! Great Xia, one day I will return. At that time, I will make all of you kneel at my feet. Beat. The Chosen One is afraid and destroyed his own face. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 300 luck points and 3,000 villain points. Within the realm, Ling Xiao heard the system notification, and a trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. He had to admit that Xia Feng was really shameless. In order to survive, he did not even care about his face. However, the more he acted like this, the more it proved that he was hiding an even bigger secret in his heart. In other words, a rebirth model like him must know what was going to happen in the western border next. The reason he was so patient was probably because he was waiting for an opportunity that could increase his strength greatly and make a comeback. In his previous life, if he had really died in Yi Shiwen's hands, it was obvious that the opportunity did not belong to him alone. Therefore, Ling Xiao was not worried that Xia Feng would secretly become stronger. He only needed to wait patiently. Xia Feng would eventually bring him more surprises. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. During these 3 days, the news that the great Xia prince, Xia Feng, was actually a true demon had already spread. Countless dynasties issued orders to kill Xia Feng on sight. Suddenly, the situation in the western border changed. There was a vague feeling that a storm was coming. Meanwhile, the great Qi dynasty, which had its second prince killed, issued a war order to the great Xia dynasty because of River Feather. They demanded compensation from the great Xia dynasty, but the great Xia dynasty refused. Now that Yi Shiwen was here, the great Xia dynasty was confident that even if the other 7 dynasties came to attack, the great Xia dynasty would still be able to capture them all. As for Ling Xiao, he stayed in the realm and patiently taught Ning cultivation. He drank wine with Yi Qingchan and talked about life goals. At noon on the 3rd day, Ling Xiao appeared in the main hall of the Great Xia Palace. The Great Xia dynasty's people had been waiting for a long time. "Lord, the young geniuses you wanted are all outside." The Great Xia dynasty's emperor bowed with a humble expression. In order to gather the geniuses of the Great Xia dynasty, he had already issued a decree according to Ling Zhao's instructions. The winner of the competition in the palace would be able to obtain great fortune. This way, whether it was the geniuses of the aristocratic clans or the monstrous geniuses of the wilderness, they would all come on their own to compete. Ling Xiao nodded and walked to the front of the palace. He looked at the thousands of youths standing in the plaza. After all, Xia Feng had escaped and the great Xia dynasty's emperor and the others had been implanted with a soul imprint. At this moment, Ling Xiao no longer concealed his appearance. With his appearance, the entire plaza fell silent for a moment. Immediately after, a burst of discussion broke out. "Which prince is this? From the looks of it, to be able to stand here, he must be either a relative of the emperor or a relative of the emperor." However, just as the crowd was guessing Ling Zhao's identity, the great Xia dynasty's emperor walked out from behind and respectfully bowed to Ling Xiao. "Lord, will the competition begin now?" The prodigies who were about to bow and greet him were all dumbfounded at this moment. "Lord?" The ruler of the great Xia dynasty actually called that young man Lord? Hiss! Chapter 419. This place is too small. Follow me. Ling Xiao smiled sinisterly and waved his hand. The realm gate appeared above his head, and the prodigy's eyes were filled with shock and horror. "Is this the entrance to the mystic realm? Is the grand competition a treasure hunt in the mystic realm? Good fortune! This is our good fortune!" Whoosh! Whoosh! Ling Xiao looked at Emperor Xia calmly and said coldly, "Inform the Grand Tutor to lead the troops and follow me to the borders tomorrow." "Yes, my lord." Ling Zhao's figure disappeared on the spot, and the originally bustling square instantly became empty. Thousands of heaven's favorites stood on a vast plain in the middle of the world. Their eyes were filled with curiosity. Several figures stood quietly on the plain, and the spiritual light around them formed a formation that sealed the area. The void rippled. Ling Xiao stood on top of the sky and said softly, "Let's begin. The 100 people who survive in one day can become my slaves." What? The expressions of all the geniuses changed drastically upon hearing this. Is this a grand competition? What happened to the promised heavenly fortune? Are you sure this isn't a demon sect disciple selection? I want to go home. Let me out. I withdraw from the competition. I withdraw from the competition. If you don't kill, you can only be killed. Ling Xiao shook his head and sneered. He stretched out his finger and slashed. A sharp sword light tore through the clouds and fell toward the crowd. Dozens of youths turned into blood mist, and their heads were separated from their bodies. Gulp. Suddenly, spiritual light flickered between heaven and earth, and the smell of blood permeated the air. Ling Xiao didn't even look at the crowd. He walked toward a spiritual mountain in the distance. Since he was selecting people with good fortune, he didn't have the time to look at them one by one. He wanted them to kill each other. The ones who survived in the end were either powerful, tenacious, or had good fortune. Only then would he be qualified to be nurtured. While subduing experts, he could also train a group of fated death warriors. Only then would the Sky Demon Palace truly reappear in the world. Dragon Fortune City, Dream Cloud Restaurant. The white-clothed Qiu Qing Han was sitting by the window, drinking a pot of hot wine. At this moment, her eyes were filled with confusion. Another true demon had appeared. It was in the Grand Xia Empire again. Was it a coincidence, or was someone purposely making things suspicious? It had been 300 years since the Xingzhou continent had last seen a trace of the demon. But now, in just a few days, 2 devils had appeared in the Great Xia dynasty. There was a problem. It seemed that he had to inform that lord to come over. One day passed in the blink of an eye. Within the realm, Ling Xiao stood in the air with his hands behind his back, looking down at the blood-soaked ground below. A black saber fell from the sky and stabbed into the ground. Then, a frightening scene appeared. The originally dried blood and scattered limbs suddenly began to surge, eventually turning into a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood that drowned the black saber. There were less than 100 geniuses of Great Xia who were still alive. Among them, there were more than a dozen who were seriously injured and on the verge of death. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. He extended his finger, which turned into an unparalleled sharpness, and sent those who were on the verge of death into the cycle of reincarnation. Very good. Now you will become the Sky Demon Palace's first batch of secret guards, Stacked Shadow. Master. The void trembled and Stacked Shadow's figure appeared. At this moment, she was already a 3rd-stage God King. I'll leave these people to you. Take a wisp of their soul consciousness and train them into sacrificial warriors. With that, Ling Xiao lowered his head and selected 10 people who carried providence among the 83 geniuses of the Great Xia dynasty. Follow me. Although they carried providence, it was still only 1 or 200. These people couldn't become the main characters of the world, but they still had providence, and their comprehension and talent were considered good. 2 of them had even comprehended the 5 elemental Tao laws. One was the Fire Tao law, and the other was the Water Tao law. Unfortunately, they were only comprehending, and there was no point in devouring them. Now, the geniuses were no longer as arrogant as before. All of them lowered their heads like slaves. In the depths of the realm, in a green mountain valley. Before they got close, they could smell the fragrance of herbs. Ling Xiao led the 10 young men into the valley, and they immediately attracted the attention of the crowd. It's the 100-color Ganoderma. This is the divine snow lotus. Oh my God, this valley is full of spiritual treasures. Rich spiritual qi and the fragrance of herbs filled the sky. In the middle of the valley, a young man in a black robe was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. He seemed to be surrounded by celestial clouds. His hands were crossed in front of him, and a celestial tablet was shining with golden light. It was the mortal who was imprisoned by Ling Xiao, the son of destiny, Han Zhan. As if sensing Ling Xiao's aura, Han Zhan opened his eyes, took a step forward, and bowed deeply to Ling Xiao. Master. These 10 people will follow you in the future and take care of the heavenly hall's herb garden. Split the imprint in your soul sea into 10 and plant it in their soul seas. Ling Xiao said indifferently, "This is the heavenly hall's divine medicine. Follow him and plant the herbs well. You can receive resources for cultivation every month." Yes. Now that Ling Xiao had planted a soul imprint in Han Zhan, there was no way he could resist. The soul light in his eyes flickered and disappeared into the eyes of the 10 people. A faint feeling rose from the bottom of Ling Xiao's heart. It was obvious that these 10 people had become his servants. At this point, the trip to the Great Xia had come to a successful end. He had killed a heaven's mandate and released a treasure-seeking go. Now that he had taken the blame, no one should notice him in the short term. Since that was the case, it was time to rescue that good brother from the cage. At the border of the Great Xia. This place was adjacent to the northern border of the Great Zhou dynasty, the southern region of the Great Qi dynasty, and the eastern wilderness of the Great Qin dynasty. However, today, the Flying Dragon City at the border of the Great Xia dynasty was rather lively. The Flying Dragon City Lord, the general of the Great Xia dynasty, Li Kuo, stood on the city wall in his silver armor and looked in the direction of the imperial capital. Beside him, the generals of the Great Xia dynasty stood quietly, as if they were waiting for something. "Have you heard?" This time, the Grand Tutor personally led an army to the border and said that he wants to attack the Great Zhou dynasty. Why attack the Great Zhou dynasty? "I heard that it's because the Great Zhou Emperor slandered the Great Xia dynasty for having demons." Slandered? Isn't the Great Xia dynasty a demon? Didn't the first prince and the prince consort disappear after turning into demons? Shh. Keep quiet. Do you want to die? Damn you. Didn't you say it first? In the border city, countless soldiers were waiting in formation with solemn expressions. Suddenly, the sound of wind breaking could be heard in the distant sky. On the ground, there were also tens of thousands of horses galloping. Everyone's eyes narrowed fiercely. Above the void, a figure slowly walked over. His gray robe fluttered, and there seemed to be a terrifying spiritual power that evolved into black and yellow. At first, he was in the sky, but he only took one step to reach the city wall. All kinds of strange phenomena were floating around him, and the vast emperor's power shook the whole universe. It was the Grand Tutor of the Great Xia dynasty, the #1 expert of the dynasty, the 6th grade divine emperor Qiao Yunli. "Welcome, Grand Tutor." All the soldiers in the city bowed their heads. Even the general of the city, Li Kuo, a 2nd grade divine emperor, bowed deeply with respect in his eyes. However, what surprised everyone was that Qiao Yunli did not descend from the sky. Instead, he stood quietly on the ground, as if he was waiting for someone else? What? Could it be that the emperor has personally led the army into battle? Chapter 420. Suddenly, a demonic aura swept across the sky. All the soldiers in the Flying Dragon City were shocked to see a golden carriage with 9 dragons flying through the sky and stopping beside Qiao Yunli. On the carriage, a handsome young man in a white robe was holding a jade cup and sipping wine. In his arms, he was holding a young lady in green. But that young lady, so beautiful! Her face was like a painting, her eyebrows were lazy, and her deep eyes were cold. She was like a snow woman who had accidentally entered the human world. But this was the border, a bloody battlefield. Those standing in the city were all hot-blooded soldiers who wanted to protect their country. Where did this young man come from? How could he make the state preceptor bow down to him? Could he be the illegitimate son of the emperor who came here to train and accumulate military merits so that he could be conferred a title? What happened in the capital of the Great Xia dynasty had already spread to the western border. However, everyone kept their mouths shut about Ling Xiao's identity. Therefore, even Li Kuo had a trace of doubt on his face. But no matter what, This young man must have a great background to be able to make a 6th-grade divine emperor bow down to him. Welcome, my lord. Xiao Yunli bowed and didn't get up. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently. He walked down from the carriage and glanced at the soldiers in the city. Prepare to attack the great Zhou dynasty. What? Li Kuo and the others looked at each other. F***ck. Do you know how to march and fight? You didn't even discuss the battle plan and you just rashly sent out the troops? Are you deaf? This lord has the dragon talisman in his hand. He is the most powerful person in the great Xia dynasty, above the imperial power. Go and prepare. Xiao Yunli shouted coldly. His Majesty shook the sky. Li Kuo and the others were even more puzzled. They couldn't help but guess. Most powerful person? Above the imperial power? Could it be this person is the emperor's father? Inexplicably, everyone's eyes were filled with fear and excitement. Yes. Even the state preceptor, who was a 6th-grade divine emperor, had to serve him respectfully. This young man's strength must be above his. Marching, planning, and strategies were all child's play in front of absolute strength. No. No. This was a blitz battle, taking them by surprise, not giving great Zhou time to prepare. Now that the state preceptor and His Excellency had just arrived at the border, outsiders would definitely not know. At this moment, he was leading an army to battle. Wonderful! Dong dong dong! The war drums rang out and the flying dragon city was filled with the sound of iron hooves stomping on the ground. Even the generals of the other dynasties were standing on the city wall with their mouths agape as they looked over. Was Great Xia courting death? The prince's horse turned into a demon, and the emperor stole the court. The current Great Xia was already swaying in the wind and rain, yet they still dared to take the initiative to send out troops? However, for some inexplicable reason, everyone felt a trace of unease in their hearts. Who were they going to hit? Only when Xiao Yunli took the lead and led the 3 defending generals of Great Xia to the borders of Great Xia did the northern region boil with excitement. Was the Great Xia declaring war on the Great Zhou Empire? Northern Border Impregnable Pass, Heavenly Strategy City. Originally, this city wasn't called this name, but after Ning Tiance became a god, the name was changed to Tiance. The city wall that pierced into the clouds had long been dyed pitch black by the blood. At this moment, on top of the city wall, the 5 generals stood side by side as they looked into the distance. Over there, thousands of soldiers were pressing down on them. Their pitch-black armor was as ferocious as a flood, causing one to tremble in fear. General, we just received news that the Great Xia's imperial advisor, Xiao Yunli, led 10,000 Iron Wolf cavalry and arrived today. He immediately led his troops out of the city and rushed towards Heavenly Strategy City. Behind the 5 generals, a spy came to report. Humph! Great Xia must have eaten a bear's heart and leopard's guts to actually take the initiative to invade. The leader had a stocky build and a square face with thick eyebrows. His aura was that of a rank 4 martial emperor. After Ning Tiance was summoned back to the capital, the nominal commander of the northern region was General Zhang Liao, who came from the capital. However, in reality, in the hearts of the thousands of soldiers in the northern region, this general was the soul of heavenly strategy. He was also the most loyal subordinate of the god of war, Ning Tiance, General Yuanfei, the divine wood mantra, who once built a huge wooden prison with his own strength and killed 30,000 Iron Wolf cavalry. He became famous after that battle. After Ning Tiance left, he led the army of the northern region to defend Heavenly Strategy City to the death. Xiao Yunli actually came personally. At this moment, Yuanfei's face was also solemn. In the end, the commander was the most important thing when the dynasty went on an expedition. The army could gather the strength of 10,000 people into one general. However, if the general's strength was not enough, how could he break through the army of 1,000 and stop the might of 10,000 Iron Wolf cavalry? Although Qiao Yunli did not comprehend the mantra, his strength was already at rank 6. Although Yuan Fei was not afraid of him, he could not gain the upper hand in a head-on confrontation. Moreover, the dynasty had not sent any food to the army for a year. The morale of the northern region had dropped to the bottom. It was not in line with the way of war to go to war. General, what should we do? Defend Heavenly Strategy City to the death. I don't believe that they can break through our impregnable fortress. Yuan Fei snorted coldly and his eyes were solemn. If the god of war was here, they would not need to hide. As long as the god of war gave the order, who would dare to invade the border? Unfortunately, in the blink of an eye, he had left for more than 10 years. Ningxin, I wonder if you have missed the time when you were in the capital? Report. Just as Yuan Fei was sighing inwardly, a figure came from the city and bowed. General Yuan Fei, the commander has given the order to open the city and fight. What? Yuan Fei's eyes were wide open. His spiritual aura was so strong that it almost shattered the void. He hated that Zhang Liao never cared about the lives of the northern region's soldiers. He was helpless. Of course, Emperor Zhou did this on purpose. His purpose was to erase the reverence the generals had for Ning Tiance. In the past 10 years, the northern region's millions of soldiers had died. Not only did the dynasty not reward them, but they also embezzled the army's food again and again. However, the god of war was still in the imperial capital. They did not dare to act rashly. Tell Commander Zhang that we cannot fight this war. Yuan Fei took a deep breath. His eyes suddenly calmed down. If the city gate was opened and the great Zhou dynasty accepted the war, the northern region might fall today. Qiao Yunli alone could defeat 2 emperor gods. Li Kuo and the others could kill the remaining 2 emperor realm generals in the northern region. At that time, they would lose their lives and reputation. Of course, since they followed Ning Tiance, Yuan Fei and the others had already given their lives to the battlefield. However, to the generals, watching their people being slaughtered for no reason, this feeling was extraordinary shame. General! Beside Yuan Fei, the generals looked ferocious. Obviously, they could not bear this humiliation. Zhang Liao did not care about the lives of the northern region's soldiers at all. Can't fight? General Yuan Fei, let me give you a piece of advice. This is a military order. Are you going to defy the military order? The person stood up with a disdainful look on his face. I dare not. However, I am the defending general of the northern region. Although I am under Commander Zhang's command, I have the responsibility of guarding the border. If we fight this war, the great Zhou dynasty will definitely lose. May I ask if Commander Zhang can bear the responsibility of losing the city? Yuan Fei gritted his teeth. His eyes were burning with fire. There seemed to be an ancient tree behind him that revealed endless mysteries. After 10 years of suppression, he seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Ha ha ha, General Yuan Fei, you are wrong. Chapter 421. Just as Yuan Fei and the others were furious, a terrifying aura suddenly came from the center of the city. It soon arrived above their heads. The person who came was wearing a blue and black official robe. He looked arrogant and his pale face had a hint of mockery. He was also an Emperor God expert, a second-stage Emperor God. Commander Zhang. Yuan Fei and the others bowed, but the coldness in their eyes could not be concealed. General Yuan Fei, why do you always boost the morale of others and diminish our own? We have millions of soldiers in the north. There are 100,000 elite soldiers in this city alone. Why should we be afraid of the great Xia? Zhang Liao sneered sinisterly. He was ordered to come here to suppress the soldiers of the north. The more they died, the more they would understand the kindness of the emperor. As for the great Xia, it was just a declining dynasty. What was there to be afraid of? Besides, the great Xia attacked us first. If we retreat, we will lose the prestige of the great Zhou dynasty. I will personally lead the army against the enemy. All of you will be my deputies and follow me out of the city to fight the enemy." "Yes, sir." Yuan Fei and the others sighed. They had no choice but to obey military orders. Moreover, Zhang Liao had volunteered to fight. If they hesitated, it would affect the morale of the army. The north had reached a dead end. Boom! There was a large army in the heavenly strategy city. There were 100,000 of them, and they looked majestic. Although these ordinary soldiers were mostly at the Grand Harmony and Hollow Spirit levels, they were still very powerful. When they gathered together, they caused the void to tremble and the sky to change color. The two armies faced each other at the foot of the city wall. The commanders of both sides stood in front of the army and looked at each other coldly. However, what confused the great Zhou generals was that the one standing in front of the great Xia army was not the imperial preceptor Qiao Yunli, but a handsome young man in a white robe. The young man was wearing a starry robe that shone brightly. Although his aura was only at the level of a god general, he had a cold arrogance that looked down on everyone. Qiao Yunli, Li Kuo, and the other god emperors of the great Xia dynasty stood respectfully 3 feet behind him, as if he was their leader. "Who is that young man?" Zhang Liao frowned as he turned to look at Yuan Fei and asked in a deep voice. "I don't know." "Humph. Great Xia actually dared to humiliate my imperial court by sending a god general as the commander. They are simply seeking death. Whoever manages to behead that young man in this battle, I will definitely report this to the imperial court and ask for a reward." Zhang Liao shouted softly. But inexplicably, when he saw the young man's black eyes looking at him, he felt an inexplicable fear. That person is Zhang Liao. In front of the great Xia army, Ling Xiao stood indifferently with a calm expression. These were Ning Tian's supporters. Unfortunately, the decade-long depression had caused this once invincible and iron-blooded combat master to lose all of its former dignity. Especially the person standing in front of the army. At first glance, one could tell that he was a treacherous person. He did not fit in with the rest of the generals. "That's right. My lord, that man is Zhang Liao, the commander of the army sent by the great Zhou dynasty to replace Ning Tian's in the north. It is said that this person is Empress Zhou's younger brother, a second-stage god emperor. He is a cowardly and sinister person, and he has never personally participated in the war in the north." Li Kuo reported softly while Ling Xiao nodded with a smile. "Killing Empress Zhou's younger brother was enough to infuriate Emperor Zhou, right? Today we are not attacking the city. We are only here to kill Zhang Liao." After finishing his words, Ling Xiao suddenly waved his hand. Behind him, the army rushed forward. Qiao Yunli and the others became the vanguard and charged towards Zhang Liao furiously. "Humph! Good timing. You guys, hold Qiao Yunli and the others back. I will find an opportunity to kill the enemy commander," Zhang Liao shouted coldly. Instead of advancing, he retreated and hid behind the crowd. "Humph!" Yuan Fei and the others snorted. Spiritual light surged around their bodies and turned into iron-blooded momentum. They charged towards Qiao Yunli and the others. Boom! The vast spiritual might turned into lightning and raging wind. A storm was coming. The entire world turned gloomy for no reason. Young Master Wei Yi Qingchan stood beside Ling Xiao. Her beautiful eyes were filled with shock, especially when the two armies clashed. The murderous aura that filled the world made the girl's heart turn cold. Panic surged in her eyes. "If you don't like it, you can return to the world first." Ling Xiao turned his head with a gentle gaze. Yi Qingchan only shook her head with a smile. The last trace of struggle in her eyes gradually disappeared. Last time, when young master killed Yuan Yu's 3,000 disciples, she only watched from the side. Now that she finally had the chance to kill the enemy with him, how could she retreat so easily? Moreover, young master's action was to save Ning Tian's. It was a righteous action. Since she wanted to fight side by side with him, who couldn't be killed in this world. Let's go. Let's go meet that Commander Zhang Liao. Ling Xiao grinned and stepped forward. The shadow of a dragon instantly followed him and turned into a 100-feet-long dragon. Roar! The ear-piercing roar shook the world. The two armies that were originally engaged in battle turned their heads to look at him with fearful gazes. Although most of the warhorses in the army had demonic veins, in front of a true dragon, their hooves went soft and they fell to the ground. In the sky, the shadow of a demonic dragon meandered. In the middle of its head, a white-clothed youth stood with his hands behind his back. He was like a god of the 9 heavens, arrogant and unparalleled. Although these people are Ning Tian's confidants, if I don't kill them, Emperor Zhou won't be afraid. Ling Xiao muttered to himself. The black saber in his hand suddenly emitted a monstrous light. As the saber slashed down, the 8 laws evolved. Heaven and earth seemed to fall silent at this moment. 100-feet-long saber light descended like the Milky Way and instantly fell towards the great Zhou army. No! Yuan Fei and the others were furious. However, they were blocked by Qiao Yunli. They could only watch as the saber light pierced through the void and chopped thousands of soldiers into minced meat. The thick smell of blood rolled like waves. The entire heavenly strategy city was covered in blood and broken limbs. However, at this moment, Ling Zhao's eyes were still calm and even contained a hint of joy. He could feel that the ripple in the primordial demonic blade was becoming clearer. It was obvious that after slaughtering thousands of lives, this ancient blade that could slay immortals and Buddhas was slowly awakening. In a corner of the battlefield, Yi Qingchan waved her jade-like hand and frost seemed to spread around her. In just half a breath's time, the land within 100-feet radius turned into an ice domain. The great Zhou army that couldn't react in time were instantly frozen into ice sculptures and shattered upon contact. At the back of the crowd, Zhang Liao's face was already pale when he saw the figure riding on the dragon. Although he was a god emperor, his cultivation base was forcefully raised by elixirs. His combat strength was extremely low, especially at this moment when Ling Xiao slaughtered thousands of people with his saber. It made him lose all will to fight. He only wanted to quickly retreat back to the city and curl up to defend. Retreat! Retreat! Clang! Clang! The sound of the gong echoed for thousands of miles. The eyes of Yuan Fei and the others dimmed. In the end, they didn't dare to stay and rushed back into the city. However, what surprised everyone was that although Qiao Yunli and the others chased after them, they didn't kill anymore. Instead, they directly passed by the soldiers and rushed toward Zhang Liao. "Protect our commander!" Yuan Fei shouted angrily and formed a seal with both hands. Below the city wall, the ground suddenly collapsed. 100 feet of divine wood pierced through the clouds and blocked Qiao Yunli's figure. Vast divine power swept across the land and covered all directions. At this moment, Zhang Liao had already fled to the city wall and looked back with a frightened gaze. Damn it! Are these people of the Great Xia crazy? They actually want to kill me! Commander, don't worry. General Yuan Fei's Divine Wood Prison is very powerful. I have never seen anyone who can break it. Beside him, a northern region general bowed and smiled. However, just as he finished speaking, the 100-meter-long demonic dragon in the distance suddenly opened its bloody mouth in anger and bit down on the 1,000-meter-long divine tree. Chapter 422. Boom! A foul wind blew in all directions. The dragon's roar reverberated through the sky, stirring up a sea of clouds. Everyone looked at the demonic dragon that had swallowed the divine wood heavenly prison. Their eyes were filled with fear. This was especially true for Zhang Liao, who felt a chill run down from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet. What is this? It can even swallow the divine power of Dao laws? However, before Zhang Liao could feel fear, Qiao Yunli and the others descended from the sky and surrounded him on the city wall. Qiao Yunli, I'm Empress Zhou's brother. If you dare to kill me, Great Zhou will annihilate the Great Xia dynasty." At the moment of life and death, Zhang Liao showed his villainous side and shouted angrily, "Empress Zhou? Soon, I'll send her down and let you two reunite." Ling Xiao smiled faintly and flew over on his dragon. His figure stood proudly in midair as he looked down at the people below him. "Kill!" Then, before Zhang Liao could refute, Qiao Yunli's eyes flashed. He took a step forward and the spiritual light in his hand turned into a seal. Covered the sky and covered the entire heavenly planned city. The terrifying aura crushed the surroundings and the endless spiritual power instantly destroyed the city wall. The void collapsed and countless spatial cracks swept across with the spiritual seal. The full power of a sixth-grade divine emperor's attack was shocking. "No!" Yuan Fei and the others cried out in pain and sorrow. However, it was too late for them to stop him. They could only grit their teeth and lead the defeated soldiers to escape. Great Xia dynasty came with great momentum. Not only was Imperial Preceptor Qiao Yunli powerful, but there was also a person who was riding a dragon. The young man's cultivation was not high, but his methods and temperament were terrifying. Obviously, he was a variable. Heavenly Planned City was the most majestic city in the north and the first border of Great Zhou. Once this city was destroyed, there would be 7 more city passes. However, it was too late. It was too late. Boom! The spiritual seal fell from the sky. It crushed the entire heavenly planned city. Countless guards in the city did not even have time to scream before they were turned into ashes. Ling Xiao lowered his head and looked calmly at the fleeing generals of the Great Zhou dynasty. The heavenly strategy city had already been breached, Zhang Liao had died tragically, and tens of thousands of soldiers had died under a single seal. If this matter was not enough to infuriate Emperor Zhou, and he sent Ning Tiance to lead the army, it was likely that this Emperor Zhou did not want his country anymore. Although there were millions of soldiers in the northern region, they were all Ning Tiance's trusted subordinate. No matter who the imperial court sent to lead the troops, it was likely that they would not be able to truly make the generals submit. Only Ning Tiance, the return of the god of war, would be able to raise the morale of the army. They would unite against a common enemy and defeat the Xia dynasty. However, you're just an ant standing on the second level. What you see is only the first level's barrenness. The estrangement of the monarch and his ministers was already the beginning of the dynasty's collapse. My lord, why don't we pursue the victory and break through the 7 passes of the Great Zhou dynasty? Li Kuo and the others stood beside Ling Xiao, their eyes filled with joy. Heavenly Planned City. Today, the most majestic fortress in the Great Zhou Empire's borders was finally breached. In the past 20 years, there was no one who did not fear the mention of the heavenly policy in this border area. The name of the god of war caused the 8 dynasties to tremble in fear. Not to mention attacking the heavenly policy city, just the sight of this fortress was enough to make everyone feel fear. However, no one expected that in today's battle, not only did the experts of the Great Xia dynasty kill the #1 commander of the Great Zhou Empire's borders, they even uprooted the entire fortress. From now on, the Great Zhou dynasty no longer had a heavenly policy. All of you, set up camp here. Ling Xiao coldly glanced at Li Kuo. Then, he carried Yi Qinchan and chased after Yuan Fei and the others. Imperial tutor. My lord is... Li Kuo and the others were stunned. Their eyes were filled with shock. Although their lord was somewhat impressive just now. However, he chased after tens of thousands of enemies alone. Was he going to send their heads back? My lord's methods are not something you can fathom. However, what shocked everyone was that Qiao Yunli only snorted coldly. Then, his figure also disappeared from the spot. It was only after everyone had left that a golden-robed figure gradually appeared in the distance. It can't be wrong, that aura. Beside him, Qiu Qinghan frowned slightly. She did not seem to understand. My lord, the person you're looking for, don't ask what you shouldn't ask. To be able to conceal his aura so easily in front of Qiao Yunli, a 6th-grade divine emperor, this person's cultivation, at the border of Great Zhou, in front of a steep mountain path. Yuan Fei and the other generals of Great Zhou stood in silence. Behind them, the remaining tens of thousands of soldiers hung their heads in dejection. Their eyes were dull. Today, the faith in their hearts had been shattered. Although they had suffered defeats over the years, they had never been slaughtered like stray dogs like today. Especially when the Heavenly Policy City Pass was destroyed by a single seal. This made them feel even more despaired and vexed. General, what should we do now? All the generals looked at Yuan Fei with desolate expressions. They were not afraid of death. However, they did not want to die in such a cowardly manner. Although Qiao Yunli had displayed his invincible might in today's battle, he had fought against 2 great Zhou god emperors by himself and caused Great Zhou to be utterly defeated. However, the young man with Yulong was the main reason why Heavenly Policy City was destroyed. Yuan Fei relied on the divine Wood Dao law. He was confident that even a 6th-grade divine emperor would not be able to escape from the divine prison easily. However, fear flashed across Yuan Fei's eyes when he thought of the ferocious demonic dragon. How could it be? When did such a terrifying young man appear in Great Xia? He rode on a real dragon and commanded the heavens and earth. Why was such a demonic figure not famous in the western border? Roar! Before Yuan Fei could think further, a dragon's roar suddenly resounded in the sky. The void shook and the heavens and earth lost their color. All the soldiers of Great Zhou looked up in despair and fear. In the next moment their expressions froze. At this moment, Ling Xiao stood on the dragon's head with his hands behind his back. His face was handsome and there seemed to be stars shining around him. He looked like a deity. However, he seemed to have chased after them alone? Could it be that he ran too fast? F***CK. I suspect that you are looking down on our great Zhou god emperors. However, since Yuan Fei did not move, no one dared to act rashly. How could a person with Yulong be so careless? Since he dared to come here alone, he must have something to rely on. Who exactly are you? The armor on Yuan Fei's body lit up. Obviously, he was on guard. From now on, I want all the soldiers of the northern region to flee to the south and pretend to be defeated. Open the city gates and welcome me in. Ling Xiao stepped out and landed in front of Yuan Fei and the others. For a moment, the soldiers of Great Zhou saw a trace of the god of war's shadow in him. The same arrogance and indifference. The same strategizing. My life is the mandate of heaven. It doesn't matter if you don't understand. Just do as I say. But welcome you into the city? Although the Emperor of Great Zhou doesn't think highly of us and even makes things difficult for us, we are all soldiers of Great Zhou. How can we betray the dynasty? Who do you think you are? Welcome you into the city? You want to slaughter the soldiers of Great Zhou? Haha, your god of war doesn't care about you anymore. What's the point of you living? Ling Xiao shook his head and sneered. However, he was pondering. He was testing whether these people were still in awe of Ning Tian. You can insult me, but you can't insult my general. Die! Yuan Fei, who was hesitating, suddenly shouted. Even though he was feeling uneasy, he still pulled out his saber and dashed toward Ling Xiao. The space buzzed and blood qi shook the sky. Divine trees that were hundreds of feet long rose from the ground and shattered the entire mountain range. The Dao sound resounded and the sky collapsed. Obviously, Yuan Fei had used all his strength in this attack. Chapter 423. Haha, you're just a bunch of stray dogs. When Ning Tiance was sent back to the capital by Emperor Zhou, why weren't you so angry? Now you've learned how to be fierce? Ling Xiao smiled faintly, but he didn't move at all. There wasn't even a trace of spiritual energy around him. If he wanted to, he could enter the realm at any time to avoid Yuan Fei's attack. Shut up. God Ning will always be a god. I won't allow you to insult the war god of the north. Yuan Fei was furious. Even though they hadn't seen each other for 20 years, Ning Tiance was still more important to him than his life, his imperial power and everything else. He could die on the battlefield, he could die in battle, but he absolutely would not allow anyone to insult the faith in his heart. Boom! Monstrous spiritual energy surged like waves and enveloped the void above Ling Zhao's head. On the ground, the divine trees lined up and the mountains collapsed. They charged toward Ling Zhao with unstoppable momentum. However, just as Yuan Fei's figure appeared 30 feet away from Ling Zhao suddenly raised his hand, causing Yuan Fei's footsteps to abruptly stop. Even the divine trees under the ground stopped strangely in front of Ling Zhao. Huh? What happened to General Yuan? The generals of the Great Zhou dynasty looked at each other in shock. Then, to everyone's astonishment, the furious general of the northern region suddenly knelt on the ground. F***CK? Did the general betray the Great Zhou dynasty? How is that possible? I don't believe it. General, should I kneel down too? In an instant, many of the generals of the north widened their eyes and hesitated. Greetings, war god. At this moment, Yuan Fei suddenly shouted, and everyone's expression froze. War god? Boom! Countless spiritual energy surged, and monstrous killing intent surged. Yuan Fei, you can surrender to the enemy, and you can give up your dignity in order to survive. But you can't insult the war god. Why aren't you kneeling? Have you forgotten the glory of the past? Ling Zhao looked solemn as he looked at the generals of the Great Zhou dynasty. Kneel? Do you think we're all afraid of death like Yuan Fei? Even if we die today, we will definitely kill you. Before the generals could finish speaking, Ling Zhao gently waved his hand. A stream of light shot out and was caught by the general in the lead. Young man, you don't have any martial virtues. You actually want to sneak attack me. Plop! While all the Great Zhou soldiers were puzzled, the general holding the golden talisman suddenly knelt down again. Greetings, war god. What the hell? What the F***CK is going on? At this moment, everyone's face was filled with confusion. Yuan Fei took a deep breath and raised his head to look at the young man in front of him. He asked coldly, "Why is the war god token in your hands?" "What? God of war token?" Everyone walked up to the general and looked at the ancient command talisman in his hand. In the next moment, their eyes widened. War god! Why is it in my hands? Ling Zhao raised his head and looked at the sky. His eyes faintly carried a wisp of vicissitude. Do you think that if Ning Tiance didn't give it to me, I would be able to snatch it from him? But Yuan Fei frowned. Seeing the war god token was like seeing the war god in person. It could command millions of soldiers in the north. How could the war god give such an important token to a young man from the enemy's dynasty? Do you think that I led the army to attack the Great Zhou dynasty for these cities? Ling Zhao shook his head in disappointment. The war god Ning Tiance was trapped in the capital of the Great Zhou dynasty for 20 years. He was easily humiliated by the eldest princess and even had divine overlords watching him when he went out. The war god, the commander of millions of soldiers, has never been defeated in 10 years. But now, he is being kept in the capital like an animal. Boom! Hearing this, Yuan Fei and the others clenched their fists. The murderous aura around them shot up to the sky and stirred up the clouds. How could they not know what Ling Zhao said? But military orders were like mountains. The war god returned to the capital to fulfill his promise. They didn't dare to act recklessly. What about you? You are an iron-blooded general, but you are being humiliated by a dog sent by the great Zhou emperor. How ridiculous is that? Ling Zhao took a deep breath. His body seemed to be surrounded by golden light that was filled with righteousness. My brother and I met by fate. When I learned about his fate, I was heartbroken. Today, I led the army here not for the mountains and rivers, but to save my brother from the prison and restore the glory of the war god. You can choose not to believe me or cooperate with me, but I will sacrifice millions of lives in the great Zhou dynasty for my brother's return. Boom! This time, Yuan Fei and the others no longer had any hesitation or doubt on their faces. They understood now. It turned out that the young and mysterious commander of the great Xia dynasty was the war god's brother. But why did he kill the old subordinates of the war god and destroy Tiansu City? F***ck. Why? Of course, it was to refine the demonic saber. No, it was to intimidate the great Zhou emperor. I know that you must be wondering why I, the brother of the war god, killed his soldiers, Ling Xiao sneered. His eyes flashed fiercely. If I didn't do that, why would the great Zhou emperor let him return to lead the army against the enemy? What? You mean, as generals, Yuan Fei and the others were naturally sensitive. They instantly understood what Ling Xiao meant. If the great Zhou dynasty broke through all 7 gates, the great Zhou emperor would definitely panic. There were many god emperors in the great Zhou dynasty, but only Ning Tiance could lead the army to war. Moreover, the people in the northern region were all loyal to Ning Tiance. If other people were here, they wouldn't be able to raise the morale and turn the situation around. Wonderful! As expected of the war god's brother. Such a scheming mind. He really has the style of a commander. So what if we sacrifice tens of thousands of soldiers? As long as the war god returns and is no longer imprisoned, so what if we all die? General! War. No, young master. Then what should we do now? Yuan Fei and the others had already calmed down. They looked at Ling Xiao with eyes full of respect. If it wasn't for this mysterious young master's strategy, they might not be able to see the war god again in their lifetime. It's very simple. In the northern region, no one should know better than you who is on our side and who is on the great Zhou emperor's side. From now on, I will lead the army to pursue the enemy. You all will abandon the city and retreat. Of course, there will be casualties in the process. I hope you all can understand. Ling Xiao said indifferently. Yuan Fei and the others immediately nodded with a righteous look. Understood. Don't worry, young master. As long as the war god returns, we will die without regrets. But we are the soldiers of the war god. Naturally, we are willing to die. Young master, you better not hurt the people along the way. Otherwise, the war god will blame you. Yuan Fei pondered for a moment and finally said coldly. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. Suddenly, a cold light flashed across his eyes. Although Yuan Fei didn't have any luck, the Tao law of the divine wood was indeed interesting. Using the divine wood as a prison to imprison heaven and earth. Moreover, he was a god emperor. His Tao law was close to completion. Wasn't it better than the golden Tao law on Xiafeng? Moreover, the latter's mission had not been completed yet, and Yuan Fei was not loyal to him. Now, Ling Xiao only needed one more Tao law to gather all 9. The Sky Demon's true body would also enter the 3rd refinement realm. At that time, his strength would definitely increase by a large margin. Previously, Ling Xiao was not in a hurry to find the Tao law and break through to the 3rd refinement realm because he was worried. It was more or less difficult to suppress the demonic will as a god general. Now that he was a god overlord, even if he could not completely suppress it, he could hide in the realm to cultivate and not expose his identity. As a villain, if he didn't want to die, he should not be reckless. As for Yuan Fei, he had to think of a way to let him die naturally. What? I am cruel, heartless, and not human? I just want to work hard to increase my strength and build a stable and prosperous world for the people of Xinjiang. Sorry, I am indeed not human. I will be the only immortal in the 9 heavens and 10 earth. Beat. The host's thoughts are in line with the villain's style. Congratulations, host. System reward, 5,000 villain point. Chapter 424. Young Master, the general guarding the next pass is called Gao Wenyong. He used to be Ning Shin's military advisor. He is a second-grade divine emperor, but he is an expert in formations and poison. According to my investigation, he has secretly sided with Emperor Zhou and instigated many generals to work for him. He has always been at odds with me. I wonder if your dragon can break his formation. At this moment, Yuan Fei naturally did not know what Ling Xiao was thinking. There were 7 passes in Great Zhou, and each pass had 1 general. Heavenly Plan City was the first pass, and its defense was the strongest. It was guarded by 3 emperors and 4 kings. However, today, the city was breached because Zhang Liao was arrogant and took the initiative to fight. If Gao Wenyong defended the city with his life and sealed the city with formations, even Qiao Yunli would not be able to break it easily. If so, once Emperor Zhou sent reinforcements, Ling Zhao's plan would fail. Formations and poison? I'm afraid not. A trace of evil flashed across Ling Zhao's eyes. He then waved his hand at Yuan Fei. General Yuan, may I have a word with you? Young master, what can I do for you? Ling Xiao did not care about array formations or the poison Dao. With the formation-breaking talisman in hand, although its power was not there, it was nothing to worry about. However, could he use this opportunity to ask Yuan Fei to give up his life? General Yuan, you said that you are willing to die for the battle god. Do you mean it? Ling Zhao's expression was solemn, with a hint of seriousness. Of course. If not for Ningxuan, I would have died on the battlefield. My life belongs to the battle god. Yuan Fei's expression was solemn. He did not hesitate at all. Good. General Yuan is righteous. When the battle god returns, I will inform you. Ling Xiao nodded. Suddenly, he used his divine sense to send a message. General, since this man is a former subordinate of the god of war, and now he has pledged allegiance to Emperor Zhou, I will definitely kill him to deter those who have second thoughts. But before that, we should let the soldiers of the northern region see how sinister he and Emperor Zhou are. Only then can we break the city, kill the enemy, and unite the people. Young master, you mean? I will blend into the great Zhou army and enter the city with the general. At that time, you will find a chance to argue with Gao Wenyong and let everyone know that he has betrayed his faith. Then, Ling Xiao wanted to say something, but hesitated. His voice was cold, but his eyes were filled with bitterness. Young master, I understand. Yuan Fei was shocked at first, but he quickly calmed down. With Gao Wenyong's sinister and cautious nature, he would not easily open the city to welcome the enemy. If they wanted to break the city, they would have to kill him first. However, he needed a reason to kill a city guard general. If Yuan Fei died, it would be the best fuse. He was already at odds with Gao Wenyong. If he were to die in Gao Wenyong's defense, anyone who still had faith in their hearts and was loyal to the war god would definitely revolt and kill him. What's more, with the young master in the army, with his ability to strategize, how could he be afraid that the people wouldn't rebel? As long as the city gates were opened, who would be able to resist the might of Qiao Yunli, a 6th-grade divine emperor? Other than this person, is there anyone else in the northern region who has betrayed us? Ling Zhao's eyes were serious, but Yuan Fei shook his head. Gao Wenyong is only a military advisor. He was originally only in charge of guarding the city with the war god. He never really went into battle with Ningxuan. Therefore, he is not as brave as the soldiers of the northern region. Other than him, the remaining 6 city guards were all trained by Ningxuan. Young master, you can rest assured. As for the soldiers in the army, most of them are spies of Emperor Zhou. All right, they are just ants. There is no need to worry about them. General Yuan, I will rely on you for this great plan. Ling Xiao took a deep breath and suddenly bowed to Yuan Fei. This plan is very important. General Yuan, it is best that no one else knows about it. Young master, don't worry. Yuan Fei knows the importance of this matter. Let's go. Ling Xiao waved his hand and sent Floey back to its realm. Ever since it had swallowed Yuan Fei's divine tree, the dog had been burping and farting all the way back. Its aura was actually showing signs of a breakthrough. Damn. Is this animal's innate ability really that of swallowing? In the end, Ling Xiao did not think too much about it. He used his soul seal to send a message to Qiao Yunli and told him about his next plan. Only then did he sneak into the great Zhou army and head towards a majestic city in the distance. During the journey, Yuan Fei did not mention Ling Xiao's plan. However, he told everyone that in the future, they would listen to Ling Xiao's orders. Of course, with the war god token in hand, these northern generals did not dare to disobey. Even if they disobeyed, he could just find an excuse to kill them. There was nothing to worry about. As for Ling Xiao's identity, now that Zhang Liao was dead, the only people who saw Ling Xiao riding the dragon were the people of Great Xia. No matter how scheming Gao Wenyong was, he probably would not have thought that the Great Xia's commander-in-chief was in the Great Zhou army. Great Zhou Imperial City, Central Imperial Palace. The Great Zhou Emperor coldly looked at a black-clothed figure below. His face was gloomy. You are saying that the Great Xia's imperial preceptor, Qiao Yunli, led the army to attack Heavenly Strategy City, and Heavenly Strategy City has fallen? Yes. Emperor, the spies at the front lines have reported that at noon today, Great Xia suddenly launched an attack and headed straight for Heavenly Strategy City. Although Commander Zhang Liao tried his best to resist, in the end, he was no match for Qiao Yunli and was killed on the spot. Now, the Great Xia's army is heading for the second city, Chongyan City. Great Xia is courting death. First, they killed my princess. Now, they are launching an attack. Pass down my orders. Ask Gao Wenyong to defend Chongyan City to the death. Order the other 6 generals to lead their troops to reinforce Chongyan City. We have millions of soldiers in the north. Why should we be afraid of a mere Great Xia? The Great Zhou Emperor coldly shouted. The shadow of a dragon appeared behind him, and the temple appeared. It was extremely majestic. Emperor, the northern generals have long held grudges against the imperial court. Gao Wenyong has been entering the imperial capital frequently in recent years. I am afraid, Order the northern general, Pei Qinbao, to lead the 70,000 golden scaled guards to the north. He will take over the role of commander-in-chief and attack the Great Xia bastards. The Great Zhou Emperor pondered for a moment and finally said coldly. Of course, he knew that it was the best time to send Ning Tiance back to the north to lead the army. But releasing the tiger back to the mountain and letting the tiger fight for the dragon's luck had happened since ancient times. Unless it was absolutely necessary, the Great Zhou Emperor did not dare to take the risk. The northern general, Pei Qinbao, was a 4th-stage god emperor. In terms of cultivation, he was 1 stage higher than Ning Tiance. He was the Great Zhou Emperor's most trusted general. The 70,000 golden scaled guards were the most elite troops of the Great Zhou Empire. They were invincible. With Pei Qinbao leading the army, the war could be settled. Wait. Send a message to the Great Qin and Great Qi empires. Tell them there is a demon in the Great Xia. The 3 empires will enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and divide the Great Xia. If they dare to attack the Great Zhou Empire, I will make sure that they cannot protect their empire. Yes. In the north of the Great Zhou Empire, a golden-robed figure appeared in the sky. He frowned as he looked at the countless figures below. How could it be? Why did he suddenly disappear? Did he sense that I was spying on him? My lord, could it be that he used some secret technique to hide his aura? Qiu Qinghan stood behind him. There was a complicated coldness in her eyebrows. Not necessarily. It is also possible that he used a void secret treasure and left temporarily. But, as long as I can protect this person, nothing can escape from my grasp. My lord is wise. Young master, Chongyun City is in front of us. Yuan Fei stood beside Ling Xiao. The latter had already changed into the great Zhou battle armor, and had a different aura. Go. Ling Xiao nodded. Yuan Fei immediately stepped forward and stood before the city gate. He shouted, Heavenly Strategy City's General Yuan Fei is here. My troops have been defeated. Open the city gate quickly. General Yuan? Didn't you swear to live and die with the Heavenly Strategy City? If the Heavenly Strategy City is defeated, why did you escape to my Chongyun City? Above the city wall, someone sneered. Presumptuous. The great Xia Empire is right behind you. If you hesitate any longer, your Chongyun City will follow in the footsteps of my Heavenly Strategy City. Yuan Fei shouted angrily. His emperor's aura surged and intimidated thousands of soldiers. General Yuan, please wait for a moment. I need to report this to Lord Gao before I can make a decision. The city guard did not dare to hesitate. He turned around and rushed into the city. Chapter 425. Oh? Yuan Fei and the others are here? In a majestic palace in Heavy Cloud City, Gao Wenyong was wearing a black robe. A cold smile appeared on his slender face. My lord! They are here. They are outside the city now. They are clamoring to enter the city and join us. Below the palace, a general in black armor sneered. My lord, Yuan Fei has always been arrogant. He has always looked down on you because of Ningtians. Why don't we take this opportunity to get rid of him? Idiot! Gao Wenyong glared at him. Do I look like a narrow-minded person? Yes, no, it was me who was being rash. Go, open the city gate and let Yuan Fei and the others in. Then, activate the city defense array and defend Heavy Cloud City. Gao Wenyong shouted coldly. He turned around and sat on the big chair in the palace. His eyes were gloomy. Of course, he wanted to take this opportunity to kill Yuan Fei. However, now that the enemy was here, Yuan Fei was an emperor god. His combat strength was stronger than Jiang Chen's. With him around, Jiang Chen would be more powerful. Besides, the soldiers in the north respected Yuan Fei's character. If Jiang Chen killed Yuan Fei, he would become the target of public criticism. These years, although he had been close to Emperor Zhou, he was still loyal to Ningtians on the surface. He only dared to do something behind Emperor Zhou's back. Gao Wenyong knew that no matter how much time had passed, as long as Ningtians was still alive, the north would still belong to the god of war. What he needed to do was to please Emperor Zhou so that he could leave this place as soon as possible. In the future, he would definitely be promoted. He had already sent a report to Emperor Zhou. He believed that there would be a response soon. As long as he defended Heavy Cloud City, even Xiao Yunli could not do anything to him. When the army of the Empire arrived, he would show some of his skills. He would be rewarded with merits and be promoted to the top of his life. I, Gao Wenyong, am indeed a military advisor. The situation of the great Zhou dynasty is under my control. Boom. The gate of Heavy Cloud City opened. Ling Xiao followed Yuan Fei and the others into the city with a heavy and lonely expression on his face. The moment the generals stepped into the city, Ling Xiao could clearly sense the power of a formation in the air, completely sealing off the entire city. Ha! Isn't this the invincible General Yuan? Gao Wenyong descended from the sky and landed in front of Yuan Fei. Behind him, there were several generals of the great Zhou dynasty who looked at Yuan Fei and the others with mixed emotions and indifference. In short, it was very complicated. 10 years ago, everyone was loyal to Ningtians. Serve the dynasty and slay the enemy on the battlefield. Although he was training in life and death situations, he had no regrets and was filled with hot-bloodedness. However, when the war god returned to the imperial court, he took off his armor. Although he was loyal to the emperor and valued relationships, it was still somewhat sorrowful. Especially in the past 10 years, the wars in the northern region had been endless. Their old subordinates had died tragically, but the dynasty had ignored them. Gradually, the soldiers began to resent them. If Ning Tiance had not left and even raised his army against the dynasty, why would they be targeted and die for nothing? Dying on the battlefield was the final destination of the soldiers. However, who would be willing to die for no reason and for no reason? This was the reason why Gao Wenyong's support was growing. They longed to leave this land that they once loved. It was not betrayal, but they were tired. Gao Wenyong. Yuan Fei's expression was gloomy as he muttered to himself. Ling Zhao's plan was ruthless and merciless. It sentenced him to death directly. However, if it was not so, the heavy cloud city would be difficult to break and the dynasty would not have sent Ningxin back. Everything was for the war god and the millions of soldiers in the northern region. General Yuan, you abandoned the city and caused Commander Zhang to die in the hands of the Xia dynasty. Do you think I should capture you or let you go? Gao Wenyong already had a deep grudge against Yuan Fei. A few years ago, Yuan Fei even questioned his sinister intentions in front of everyone. Although he did not dare to kill Yuan Fei on the spot, he still mocked him. Gao Wenyong, do you think you can protect the heavy cloud city by hiding here? I advise you not to be careless. The state preceptor of the great Xia dynasty is here and he is a rank 6. You can't stop him. You'd better report this to the imperial court as soon as possible so that they can send reinforcements. Otherwise, you won't even know how you died. Yuan Fei retorted. According to Ling Zhao's words, he deliberately stirred up trouble. As expected, Gao Wenyong's expression turned gloomy. General Yuan, the two armies are at war now. How can you shake the morale of the soldiers? Humph. Come, take away General Yuan's general talisman and let him rest in the general's hall. Gao Wenyong. How dare you? Behind Yuan Fei, everyone was agitated. They quickly stood beside Yuan Fei to protect him. Spiritual light whistled around them, stirring up the wind and clouds. Gao Wenyong, you and I are both former subordinates of Ningxin. Don't forget the rules set by Ningxin. Everything is for the northern region. Ningxin? Ha ha ha, we are fighting to the death here. Where is Ningxin now? He's probably drinking and eating meat in the imperial capital, isn't he? Gao Wenyong mocked coldly with a ferocious expression. After the fall of Heavenly Strategy City, the faith of the god of war was no longer as solid as before. Now that Yuan Fei had surrendered, it was the best opportunity for him to incite Ning Tiance's loyal soldiers to betray him. Upon hearing his words, a hint of loneliness flashed across the eyes of many northern region generals. Gao Wenyong, how dare you humiliate Ningxin? You are courting death. Yuan Fei sneered in his heart, but his face was filled with anger. He immediately stepped forward and was about to pounce on Gao Wenyong. How dare you? Are you trying to rebel in my heavy cloud city? As soon as Gao Wenyong finished speaking, countless black-armored figures walked out from the surrounding city walls. They pulled their bows and locked onto Yuan Fei and the tens of thousands of soldiers behind him. You, take him down. Gao Wenyong's lips curled into a sinister smile. Although Yuan Fei was an emperor god with a powerful cultivation, most of the soldiers behind him were low-level cultivators. The reason why General Yuan was loved and respected was because he loved his soldiers like his own children. Therefore Gao Wenyong believed that he would not be impulsive. Stop! Remember, the northern region is the most important. Yuan Fei gritted his teeth and finally removed his emperor's aura. He sighed softly. Boom! The two God King experts took a step forward and cautiously captured Yuan Fei. They then headed towards a black palace in the distance. You defeated army, go to the northern region and set up camp. In the future, you will be under the command of my heavy cloud city. Those who do not obey and dare to walk around the city will be killed immediately. Gao Wenyong took a deep look at everyone and turned to leave. General! The generals of Heavenly Strategy City looked ferocious. However, Ling Xiao shook his head slightly. Everyone, please be patient. I will send an army here tomorrow. I will need your cooperation. If you are trapped now, I am afraid it will affect the plan of the war god's return. Yes. Hearing this, the generals gritted their teeth and reluctantly walked toward the northern region. Looking at Yuan Fei, who was being taken to the city by Gao Wenyong, Ling Zhao's lips curled into a smile. He naturally did not care about a mere heavy cloud city. He had spent so much effort to set up this trap. Of course, it was not to break through this city. It was for the divine Wood Dao law on Yuan Fei. After all, Yuan Fei was an old subordinate of Ning Tian's. He was the right-hand man. If he killed Yuan Fei rashly, it would inevitably arouse suspicion and disappoint the war god. Killing two birds with one stone. Why not do it? Chapter 426. At night. In the Heavenly Strategies army, Ling Xiao looked at the generals in front of him and pondered. That's not right. Gao Wenyong locked General Yuan up alone. Could it be that he wants to take the opportunity to? The generals narrowed their eyes and suddenly felt uneasy. Gao Wenyong and General Yuan were not on good terms for a long time. Now that everyone was here to seek refuge, wouldn't it be easy for him to find a reason to kill General Yuan? Young master, what should we do? No. We should rush into the city now and save General Yuan. Wait. Ling Xiao shook his head and sighed. This is just my guess. You all saw it during the day. Gao Wenyong can't wait for us to resist so that he can have an excuse to kill us. How about this? I'm the only stranger in the army. I think Gao Wenyong won't pay attention to a divine general like me. Young master, you can't. There are at least one divine king and two divine overlords outside the encampment. Once you walk out of here, I'm afraid they will. Someone in the crowd exclaimed. At this point, there's no need to worry. General Yuan is my brother Ning Tian's most loyal general. If anything happens to him, how can I face my brother in the future? You don't have to persuade me. Gao Wenyong really dares to. Humph, I will make him pay. Ling Xiao took a deep breath and took off his heavy armor. Later, you all just need to help me attract the attention of the experts in the heavy cloud city. I will return as soon as I see General Yuan. On the way here, Ling Xiao had asked Yuan Fei to wait for his news before taking action. What he needed to do now was to personally send the great Zhou's general on his last journey. As for Gao Wenyong, F***CK, a second-grade divine emperor, do you really think I'm afraid of him? Young master. Hearing this, the generals were in awe. No wonder Ning Tian's was willing to become brothers with such a young man and even gave him the god of war token. It turns out that young master is just like the god of war. He loves his generals and is loyal to us. He is willing to sacrifice himself for us. Young master. Righteousness. Several generals stood up and bowed deeply to Ling Xiao. Their faces were filled with gratitude. Alright, you guys go and make some noise to help me escape. Ling Xiao's figure disappeared, and the Heavenly Strategies generals immediately stepped out of the tent and headed into the distance. Ladies and gentlemen of Heavy Cloud City, we have been on the run for 3 days. We are famished. Can we, at this time, Ling Xiao had already left the northern part of the city and was walking towards a large hall in the city. How could a mere divine king possibly sense his aura? Since it was an act, of course, everyone had to participate. What a sense of immersion! A third-rate author would like to kindly remind everyone that it would be a joy to be immersed in the story. Heavy Cloud City, Central Hall. Although it was late at night, the hall was still brightly lit. Ling Zhao's spiritual sense spread out and soon sensed Yuan Fei's aura. At this moment, 2 deity overlords and a few deity generals were standing outside the hall. The place was heavily guarded. The palace hall was enveloped by a spirit formation. Evidently, Gao Wenyong was very afraid of Yuan Fei. However, be it deity overlords, deity generals, or spirit formations, they were useless against Ling Xiao. Suddenly, the sky darkened and the cold moon seemed to be covered by dark clouds. The deity overlords and deity generals only felt a gust of wind blowing before everything returned to normal. A black moon floated in Ling Zhao's eyes, and his lips curled into a smile. The boundary-breaking talisman in his hand flickered with a mysterious light, and his figure instantly appeared in the main hall. Yuan Fei's tightly shut eyes suddenly opened, and a terrifying aura suddenly descended from his body. However, when he saw the peerless figure in white, a sad smile finally appeared on his face. Once, he thought that his final destination was the battlefield. Dying in the hands of the enemy was the greatest glory for a soldier. However, forget it. His entire life was for the North. Only when the god of war returned would he know that he had not let him down. Young master. Yuan Fei took a deep breath and his eyes glowed with determination. If you meet Ningxin, please send my regards. I, Yuan Fei, have never let down my country, my people, or Ning Tiance. Good. General, you're loyal and righteous. Ling Zhao's eyes glistened with tears. He raised his head and sighed. It's an honor for the North to have such a righteous person like you. Young master. Come on. Everything for Ningxin. For the North. Yuan Fei closed his eyes and dispersed his aura. Ling Xiao muttered to himself for a moment before sighing softly. General, I am in awe of your loyalty and righteousness. Even though you are dead now, I do not wish to see your cultivation go down the drain. I have a method that can pass down the Tao law to you and use it as my motivation to move forward. I wonder if you are willing to. Young master, you must be joking. If it weren't for you, the North would never have peace. If you're talking about righteousness, you're the one who drove the wolf to devour the tiger. You're willing to bear the bad name of killing people just to save the god of war. You're the one who's truly righteous. Since I'm already dead, you can take my cultivation if it's useful to you. Yuan Fei bowed deeply to Ling Xiao. Young master, I'll leave the North to you. General, you can rest in peace. I'll make sure the North will have no more wars in the future. Ling Xiao sighed, but a cold glint flashed in his eyes. The North? Wars? It's adjacent to Great Xia, Great Qin, and Great Qi. When I conquer Great Qin, I'll have 3 dynasties in my hands. Isn't it easy to destroy Great Qi? By then, all 4 dynasties will be mine. Do I still have to fight and play? If that's the case, Yuan Fei can rest assured. Young master, do it. Alright. General Yuan Fei, open your mind. Don't panic. It'll be quick. Ling Xiao looked sad. He took Yuan Fei's soul into his soul sea and pointed to the soul palace in the distance. General, go. Alright. Yuan Fei nodded. His steps were heavy. His life was a hasty one. Fortunately, he died a worthy death. Even his Tao and Tao could be used by his young master. Now, he had no regrets. Buzz! Monstrous soul radiance surged. The Black Soul Palace suddenly rose and broke through the threshold of a 4th-stage Divine Emperor. At the same time, the Tao of Divine Wood merged. Ling Zhao's eyes suddenly became heavy. Then, he disappeared on the spot, leaving Yuan Fei's body lying in the hall. It gradually turned cold. The host's behavior matches the style of a villain. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the system reward, 10,000 villain points. Boom! Within the realm, Ling Zhao's figure appeared. Demonic qi surged from his body and vaguely transformed into a 300-meter-tall giant that covered the sky. At this time, the demonic shadow around him was no longer the same one. It turned into a dragon that was somewhat similar to Liang Yi's evil dragon combat body. Ling Xiao didn't know if it was an illusion, but he could feel that the vitality and blood in his body seemed to have increased by several times. As expected, the Sky Demon's 9 transformations, 1 transformation, 1 form. After 9 transformations, it will become the number 1 demonic body in history. Buzz. As Ling Xiao's demonic body appeared, the 9 Tao laws suddenly merged into one and turned into a demonic sun that enveloped his entire body. A terrifying aura quietly spread out. The entire realm was filled with demonic wind. Demonic intent shook the sky. Everyone looked at the end of the world in shock. There was no light. It was as if the end of the world had come. Vaguely, it was as if an ancient, ferocious demon was awakening. Chapter 427. Time passed slowly. It felt like 10,000 years, but it also felt like an instant. Before Ling Xiao's eyes, heaven and earth started to crumble. The sun and moon reversed. All living beings turned into ashes and disappeared without a trace. Everything felt like the end of the world. However, after the end of the world, a new sun rose in the sky. Living beings evolved. Vast miracles floated in the 9 heavens. Cycle after cycle of destruction, birth, and destruction. This cycle continued endlessly. However, during this process, Ling Xiao's will seemed to be everlasting. It gradually became one with heaven and earth, until a beam of demonic light tore through the void. The demonic crow that was originally hovering in the sky let out an ear-piercing cry. Then, everyone watched in shock as the entire realm suddenly darkened until it was pitch black. All sounds disappeared, and there was no longer any trace of light. Ling Xiao sat cross-legged in the void. His expression was calm. A beam of demonic light extinguished between his eyebrows and finally disappeared. The Sky Demon was the source of the destruction of heaven and earth. It stood high in the 9 heavens and was undefeated for billions of eras. Compared to those true almighties in heaven and earth, the current Ling Xiao could be said to be weak. As for the evolution of all these reincarnation cycles, wasn't it also the beginning of life and death? After going through thousands of sins, he stepped on the 9 heavens with his head held high. This is the power of the Sky Demon's 3rd refinement stage. 9 laws form 1 law. The heavenly Tao creates the world, and the Sky Demon destroys the world? At this moment, the aura of the 9 laws on Ling Xiao's body dissipated. In other words, the 9 laws that were originally fused together had now merged into one. The World Destroyer Law. It did not exist in heaven and earth. It could not be reincarnated. It was resisted by the heavenly Tao. Now, with the 3rd refinement stage of the demon body, the 9 laws became one. Ling Xiao actually succeeded. He did not accept the 3,000 laws to create the world. He only wanted to destroy the world, rebuild the 6 paths of reincarnation, and achieve the beginning of himself. Ling Xiao raised his head and looked into the distance. The darkness began to recede. Light shone on the ground again. Destruction was just the beginning of a new life. Sky Demon Sutra, at a point. Boom. 70,000 villain points were instantly squandered, and Ling Xiao's demonic shadow instantly materialized. Sky Demon's true bones? However, just as the true scripture was about to enter the 4th revolution realm, a loud demonic chant suddenly sounded in his mind. 10 Sky Demon true bones were used to reconstruct the Sky Demon's true body. It's a new journey. Ling Xiao shook his head and sighed. Although he had comprehended the World Devastator Tao Law, it was only the beginning. To achieve perfection, one needed to experience the 9 great Taos and inherit the mysteries of heaven and earth. The final Tao was the myriad Tao. As for the Sky Demon's true bones, although Ling Xiao's physical body was the rebirth of the Sky Demon, it was obvious that only the primordial Sky Demon that was born in the depths of the primordial chaos could be called an eternal true demon. Only by finding 10 sky demon bones and fusing them into his body would he be able to unleash the archaic demonic might. However, now that his demonic body had entered the third revolution realm, Ling Zhao's physical body and blood energy seemed to have increased tremendously. In other words, even if he stopped cultivating, he could easily live for 1,000 years with this sea of blood energy. First revolution demonic transformation, second revolution innate divine strength, third revolution royal yang blood energy, fourth revolution, what kind of talent would he awaken? In heavy cloud city, the darkness dissipated and the light of dawn shone on the land. Ling Xiao stood in front of Yuan Fei's corpse and thought for a long time. Then, he took out the poison that he had prepared, opened Yuan Fei's mouth, and poured it into his body. In a short moment, Yuan Fei's corpse started to decay and his body could be vaguely seen. Then, an extremely mournful scream resounded through the entire heavy cloud city. Gao Wenyong, how dare you poison me? Boom! The originally quiet ancient city was suddenly filled with spiritual light that shot into the sky. Countless figures suddenly landed. Even the heavenly strategies generals, who were ordered not to leave the northern part of the city, had appeared in front of the main hall in the city without caring about their lives. At this moment, the generals' faces were filled with intense killing intent. They heard the voice clearly just now. It was General Yuan's voice. The resentment and despair contained in the voice made them feel extremely uneasy. Ling Zhao's figure quietly appeared in front of the crowd. His face was also gloomy. Young master? Just now. I've been looking for General Yuan for an entire night, but I couldn't find him. This main hall is sealed by a formation and is heavily guarded outside. It's obvious that General Yuan is inside, but Ling Xiao wanted to say something but stopped. The generals already had their guesses in their hearts. Damn it! Open the main hall! The heavenly strategies generals gritted their teeth and took a step forward. Although there was a hint of confusion in the eyes of the guards, it quickly turned into coldness. Have you forgotten Lord Gao's words? If you dare to walk around the city, you will be executed immediately. I'll kill you first. Stop. Gao Wenyong and the other heavy cloud guards descended from the sky and stood in front of the main hall. At this moment, there was also a hint of doubt on his face. In particular, the formation outside the main hall was not broken. Obviously, no one had broken in. However, that voice clearly came from the main hall. Could it be that Yuan Fei directed and acted on his own? Has anyone entered the main hall? Gao Wenyong's eyes were gloomy as he asked coldly. Lord, no. Did you hear that? No one has entered the main hall. What are you doing? Do you want to rebel? A wisp of embers might spread out from Gao Wenyong's body, instantly forcing everyone to retreat. If we don't see General Yuan today, we will not retreat even if we die. Ling Xiao took a step forward and said in a tough tone. Behind him, the generals followed closely with obvious killing intent in their eyes. Who are you? How dare you speak to me like this? If you don't retreat, I'll kill you immediately. Gao Wenyong, if you dare to kill General Yuan, aren't you afraid that the million soldiers of the northern region will exterminate your entire family? Ling Xiao was not afraid and spoke sternly. Gao Wenyong's brows were even more gloomy. Kill Yuan Fei? He wanted to, but he was not a fool. If he killed Yuan Fei here, wouldn't he become enemies with the northern region? What a joke. Yuan Fei and I are both under Lord Ning's command. We have gone through fire and water together. Why would I do such a thing? Then, Lord Gao, please open the door and let us see the general. Fine, if Yuan Fei is fine, I will punish you according to military law if you disobeyed orders. What a joke. Yuan Fei would be fine if the array was not broken. At this moment, Gao Wenyong could feel that the generals of Heavy Cloud were looking at him with mixed feelings. If he did not open the door today, it would seem that he was guilty. It would be difficult to lead the troops if they were not united. Open the door. Let General Yuan in. Gao Wenyong waved his hand, and the array outside the main hall disappeared instantly. The two divine overlords immediately turned around, opened the door, and walked in. Soon, a cry of surprise came from inside. Then, one of them rushed out in a hurry and stood in front of the crowd with an ugly expression. He did not speak for a long time. Suddenly, Gao Wenyong felt a chill from the bottom of his heart. What the f***ck? No way? Yuan Fei can't be, right? What's wrong? Lord General Yuan is dead? I think he was poisoned. What? Gao Wenyong was stunned. He turned around and looked at the generals beside him. Who is it? Who dares to poison General Yuan? Lord, you said that the array in the main hall was not broken. We all saw it with our own eyes. Who else in Heavy Cloud City could do such a thing? Ling Xiao snorted coldly. His body was surrounded by dazzling spiritual light. Behind him, countless soldiers were holding their swords. Their faces were ferocious. You bastard! How dare you poison General Yuan? This is an irreconcilable grudge. No, it's not me. What do I gain by doing this? Someone must have set me up. With Yuan Fei's death, all his plans in the northern region would go down the drain. He even dared to poison the trusted aide of the god of war. This would prove that he had betrayed the north. At the border of the great Zhou dynasty, the emperor's authority was not as important as the god of war's faith. But how could this be? Yuan Fei killed himself just to frame me? Are you out of your mind? Gao Wenyong, I didn't expect you to be so heartless. The expressions of the generals of Heavy Cloud City, who were standing behind Gao Wenyong, changed. They stepped forward and stood in front of Gao Wenyong. At this moment, the entire Heavy Cloud City was filled with a foul smell. Chapter 428. Kill! Avenge General Yuan! Ling Xiao roared angrily and took the lead. The generals of heavenly strategies, who could not suppress their anger, took a step forward and pounced on Gao Wenyong. You! Do you want to rebel? Yuan Fei colluded with the enemy and was caught by me. Why can't I sentence him to death? Men, kill these traitors on the spot! Gao Wenyong suddenly shouted when he saw that he could not get rid of the blame. You can pin the blame on me, but I can't pin the blame on you? Anyway, Yuan Fei was dead. What evidence was there? However, he underestimated Yuan Fei's position in the hearts of the generals of the northern region. Even if someone betrayed the god of war and the great Zhou dynasty, it would never be Yuan Fei. His life was saved by Ningxin. He had charged into enemy lines countless times and was trapped in deadly situations. Yuan Fei's reputation for loyalty had long been established. If he wanted to rebel, he would not have waited until now. He would not have been ordered by Emperor Zhou to guard the first pass of the great Zhou dynasty, Heavenly Strategies City. He was loyal to the death and was valued by the imperial court. This showed his loyalty. Gao Wenyong, it's really you. The generals of Heavy Cloud, who had been silent, suddenly had a fierce look in their eyes. Then, they pounced on Gao Wenyong with the crowd. You dare to rebel! You killed the general of the border pass. 9 generations of your family will be executed. Gao Wenyong's face was pale. Never in his wildest dreams had he imagined that his fate would undergo such a drastic change in the short span of a single night. What happened to the promised meteoric rise and meteoric rise? How did Yuan Fei die so inexplicably? You killed a general of the northern region and betrayed the god of war. 10 generations of your family will be executed. Ling Xiao hid in the crowd and his voice was full of anger. Spiritual light began to bloom in the air. Even the spiritual array that enveloped the heavens and earth began to ripple. Gao Wenyong's face was pale and his eyes were filled with unwillingness. However, even he could not resist the attacks of more than 10 generals of the northern region at the same time. I won't let you go! Finally, Gao Wenyong's body was surrounded by a bloody light. The array above his head turned into countless streams of light and crashed down. The dark green poisonous fog began to spread about 10 feet away from his body, and his figure directly transformed into a bloody shadow that shot madly into the distance. When he saw this scene, the corners of Ling Zhao's mouth immediately curled up into a wisp of a smile. The divine wings of wind and lightning appeared behind him, and his figure suddenly vanished on the spot. At the same time, a powerful aura suddenly appeared in the distant void. Immediately after, all the soldiers of the great Zhou dynasty were stunned to see an iron-blooded army rushing over like a flood from the horizon. The leader was the god emperor of the great Xia Li Kuo. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! The entire heavy cloud city was in complete chaos. Only the generals of Heavenly Strategy City had a complicated expression in their eyes. Just now, Ling Xiao had given the order to abandon the city and flee to the south. As for the guards of Chongyun City, they were Gao Wenyong's trusted subordinates. Who knew if there were spies of Emperor Zhou among them? He would rather kill the wrong person than let them go. If they wanted to blame someone, they could only blame themselves for following the wrong leader. Kill! Retreat! The troops of Heavenly Strategy City and Heavy Cloud City ran in different directions. On the other hand, Xiao Yunli and the others descended from the sky. The spiritual seals in their hands covered the sky and pressed down on Heavy Cloud City. Boom! Boundless blood qi spread out, and the entire ancient city turned into a purgatory. At this moment, 100 miles away from Heavy Cloud City, Gao Wenyong's figure appeared and landed in the mountain stream. His face was completely ferocious. At this moment, he seemed to feel that he had unknowingly fallen into someone's trap. But who exactly was it? Lord Gao, where are you going in such a hurry? Just as Gao Wenyong was muttering to himself, a cold laugh suddenly came from the ancient forest in front of him. Then, a tall figure in white walked out slowly. There was a faint smile on his handsome face. Who exactly are you? Suddenly, Gao Wenyong's body trembled, and there seemed to be uneasiness in his eyes. Lord Gao's art of using poison is exquisite. However, you still have to die today. For a moment, Ling Xiao thought about whether he should take Gao Wenyong as his subordinate. However, this person was related to Yuan Fei's death. If he didn't kill him, he would feel uneasy. Compared to Ning Tian's, Gao Wenyong was not worth mentioning. Moreover, speaking of using poison, Ling Xiao believed that sooner or later, he would meet a kind and cute girl who was born with a poisonous body. At that time, it was very exciting. Just, Gao Wenyong sneered. Before he could say the words, just you, his face suddenly froze. Behind the young man, 2 tall puppets appeared. Although there wasn't a trace of fluctuation around them, the 2 puppets didn't move at all. Although there was no fluctuation in their aura, their ferocious and terrifying aura was somewhat oppressive. Gulp! Humph, no matter who you are. Today, I will spare your life for now. I will remember this grudge. Gao Wenyong gritted his teeth and turned around to leave. However, the moment he turned around, the coldness on his face froze again. Behind him, a figure bathed in flames stood with his hands behind his back. His body was surrounded by red light, as though he was the god of fire who had descended to the world. Fourth grade Divine Emperor. Lord Gao, be on your way. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. The war puppet behind him turned into an afterimage and pounced toward Gao Wenyong. Outside of Hua Heng's body, resplendent flames turned into waves that covered the entire mountain stream with the momentum of covering the sky. Although Gao Wenyong was a second-grade Divine Emperor, he was proficient in formations and poison. His fighting power was not strong. Poison was naturally not a threat to puppets. The poisonous fog that filled the sky gradually dissipated under the burning flames. Gao Wenyong's figure was surrounded by the 3 puppets, and he gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. At a certain moment, When Huaheng's palm imprinted on his chest, Gao Wenyong spat out a mouthful of blood. However, before he could struggle, he heard the sound of wind and thunder. Then, he saw in a daze that a pitch-black ancient blade had pierced through his chest. Buzz! His flesh and blood turned into ashes. Even his godly soul felt a sense of sublimation at that moment. Ling Xiao waved his hand and kept the war puppet and Huaheng. Then, he flew toward Heavy Cloud City. Boom! Even though he was far away, Ling Xiao could still see the collision of spiritual power in the sky. He smiled and Flowey's figure instantly appeared under his feet. Roar! There was an earth-shattering dragon roar. The rolling demonic aura turned into dark clouds and the sky changed color instantly. Ling Xiao held the demonic blade and rushed into the soldiers of Heavy Cloud City. He raised his blade and there seemed to be a blood-red light meandering around his body. It turned into a blurry shadow that was ancient and boundless. The void within 10,000 miles shook instantly. One of the golden-robed figures looked coldly at the young man who was riding the dragon. There was a tinge of surprise in his eyes. You said that this young man is called Ling Xiao? That's right. I did some research. He is the successor of the Eastern Borders Ling people, the son-in-law of the Ethereal Palace, the holy son of the Danyuan Holy Land, and the former young master of the great demon sect, Ling Xiao. Qiu Qing Han nodded beside him. Although her tone was respectful, there was an inexplicable coldness in the depths of her eyes. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.